Okay, Sarah, we are live and you may begin at 6:30 if you'd like. It's still 6:29.
Sounds good. A few seconds to go. 6:30 on my clock. Sean, are you okay if I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Welcome, folks, to our regular September Board of Directors meeting. And big welcome to our new CEO. This is his official first board meeting, and he's excited to talk to you tonight. I do have a few opening remarks that I want to try to get to very quickly. First, I want to thank our board members who went out into the community over the past 2 weekends to share our RA positions and advocacy with members and Restonians, both at the Lake End Reggae Festival and the RCC Multicultural Festival. I'm going to have a quick plug in here. Please join us next Thursday evening at 6:30 p.m. RA is hosting a drop-in style event where you can come talk to us, learn more about our advocacy points and why we are making those and why it's important to you. I have a quick staff recognition, actually, too. One, on Labor Day weekend, we got an email about an unsafe tree. I got the email at 12:40, wasn't expecting anybody to be working, forward the email to staff, which is Mike Mack, and within 2 hours, his team, he had Chris Brown, who's our construction supervisor, out, checked the tree, came back, gave us an update, and it was handled within hours. So I don't see Mike Mack here, but I trust that Larry and Mac will make sure he hears about this and shares it with staff. I will leave it up to the CEO to see that they get recognized in more than just Sarah's plug-in or shout out.
I think Chris Brown just entered the meeting too, by the way. I saw a CB enter.
Perfect. Hi, Chris. We don't see you on my screen, but we were giving a huge shout out and thank you for addressing the safety issue over the Labor Day weekend. And moving on to Laura and her team. I do see Laura there. First of all, I want to thank you guys for opening the pools for an extra weekend. That is, I think, huge. Members are so grateful that you were able to pull that off. And I know, Mac, you'll go into it in detail and thank the staff. In addition to that, I wanted to say, I just wanted to share with our members that Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Community Risk Reduction Section recently commended our staff and patrons for their response to a cardiac arrest incident that happened this past May in one of our pools. We're so thankful that the individual rescued made a full recovery and has been back in the pool and is doing well. In August, the FCFRD held a ceremony at the fire station and RA received a special recognition in honor of our commitment to workplace and public safety. And verbatim, they said, "Your investment in an AED helped save a life." That ceremony was part of their resuscitation reunion program where survivors are reunited with the public safety personnel who played an important role in their survival. The focus of the program is not only to reconnect those involved in providing care, but to spread awareness of the importance of immediate action by our citizens in medical emergencies. I want to thank staff. I'm sure the board joins me in this. I want to thank the Aquatics team. Laura, I probably need you to help me with pronouncing some of these last names. I'm going to try the best I can. Olivia Ramboletti, Jeff Simon. Okay, thank you. That was my big, am I going to get that right? Gabe Burdock and Sophie Kennedy for a job well done.
Thank you.
Through their training and quick action, these 4 RA staff members saved an individual's life. We're so fortunate to have them on our team. In fact, we're very fortunate to have an amazing aquatics team that's well-trained, prepared should an incident like this ever occur in one of our pools. I also want to thank the administrators of the lifeguard program. That's Laura Katrona, our aquatics program manager, and Nathan Wheeler, our aquatics facilities manager, Laura Kowalski, who leads the team, Mac and Larry and the rest of the crew. I also want to thank 2 of our directors Director Dodd and Director Farrell, who jumped at a minute's notice to attend these events. I know Laurie was not able to when the date change happened, but John, thank you so much for representing us and going out. Do you want to say a few words? You were there at the event. Do you want to share about?
It was a terrific event, and the the RA member was there and thanked the people involved. And it really was a reflection of the maturity and the poise and the composure that these very young people exhibited. I mean, we're not talking about professionally trained fire and rescue people who saved this man's life. The other part that's important is our continued maintenance of these automatic external defibrillators at all of our facilities made a difference in saving this RA member's life. The other thing I want to do, ma'am, if you'll indulge me, is to commend not just these lifeguards and not just their trainers, but to commend their parents. People don't react this way in an emergency unless they have been brought up by parents who encourage them to take initiative, to maintain composure, and to act with poise and follow the training that they receive from RA. So not only do I want to acknowledge and commend the individuals involved, all of whom are very young. I doubt I could have acted with as much poise and composure as they did, but also to commend their parents for providing us and loaning us these outstanding individuals.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Laurie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Share? Go for it.
Well, I just wanted to add my commendation. And one reason I particularly had hoped to participate in that event is that my own husband was rescued and life saved by RA lifeguards on September 9 at 2020 at Lake Newport Pool. So my own family is eternally grateful for the preparedness and competence and brilliance of the aquatic staff, the lifeguards, and so grateful. So just wanted to share my commendation for people who do their job better than anyone could expect. Thank you.
Laura, I know your entire team watches our board meetings with interest, but you will share this with them. Mac, did you want to say a few words to Mac O'Leary? If you want to jump in, go for it.
Thank you. I think I'll just be very brief. Really appreciate the words of thanks and praise from the board. It really does mean a lot to the staff to be able to provide that feedback to them. And our staff really do an outstanding job. So as we look to continue to deliver outstanding service to our members and think about even ways to improve that service, and we were able to get and keep a pool open a little bit later than we'd originally planned. So special thanks to all the staff, and I'm super excited to be getting to know everybody. So I'll just stop there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, now that that's out of the way, if there is a motion to approve the agenda, we can get into tonight's business.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, no abstentions. Mike, you're an aye? Perfect. Thank you. Next is a motion for the consent calendar. If I could get a motion to approve.
So
Thank you,
moved.
John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Bob. All in favor? Aye.
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 Perfect. I think that was unanimous as well. No abstentions and no no's. Perfect. We're off to a great start. And Shalise, I think you have two, possibly more members who are here to make member comments. I'll let you decide what order they came in, the requests.
Yes, I did receive via email. So our first guest will actually be from the Hunters Woods Fellowship House, Brenda, and the actual member.
Perfect. And you can start with your name and address, please, for us. If you're not comfortable sharing your address here, if you can send it in chat to Shalise, that'll be great.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm Brenda. I work here at Hunter Woods Fellowship House, and I actually live over at the Lerner Springs apartments. So it takes me 5 minutes to walk to work every day, which is very nice. I've been living here for 7 years now in this area around Reston. I don't like to live anywhere else. So I'm very, and first, thank you for allowing me to be part of this meeting. I'm going to be speaking about the reasoning of why we should be at the ballpark. Is that something I should be talking about now? Just
Sure.
okay.
If you want to.
No, I remember, I think it was a year ago, maybe we started talking about the idea of beautifying that ballpark down here in the hill, right behind Hunter's Woods and Reston Community Center. And this summer, I've been taking my residents, I work with seniors, they're independent and they love to go on walks. And lately what I've been doing is taking them on walks twice a month with me around the area to show them how beautiful Reston is. And we kept noticing the ballpark and how empty it was. We're like, oh, we wish we could just do picnics and have benches here. And then I started realizing I had to take them around because that area is very hard to walk through. It's very dark, very steep. And it's just, it's not the safest area, not for my residents and neither for someone that lives here as well. I stopped walking there by myself. First thing, my boyfriend doesn't let me go there after dark. I'm not allowed to walk in that area. There's not enough lighting. I started exercising at home, which I don't like, because I love to walk as well. So I have to find new trails. I started going near where my mom lives. My mom lives in the Purple Sage cluster, and I love that area. And I see a lot of, and there's like a park there with benches, and they even have like this old restored building there that I love to hang around. And there's just beautiful trees. And I would love to see that here in right behind Hunter Woods.
There's gazebo. Right
And we just, I feel like that's would be perfect for our residents, for the rest of the community, for me to enjoy. And even like I bring my niece and nephews in our area, and they always prefer to go to my mom's house because of Purple Sage and not stay with me because they're like, they're like, Auntie, this area is not safe. And I'm like, oh, I wish we had more parks, because I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the parks here are more private parks as well. I feel like there's only one that's a little further for us to walk to that's actually for the public. So we've been kicked out in multiple parks, and even the one at Lerner Springs hasn't been renovated as well. So we're always looking for new places that are free, and kids can enjoy and anybody can enjoy. So I would really love to see something like that happen here at Reston. And for someone that's lived here for over 7 years, I just can't, I've seen how the crime has decreased. I've seen things have actually been better now with the renovation at Hunter Woods is almost complete. Basically, it is complete. I feel like why not continue to expand that beautification of Reston, and it would just be nice to see what you guys could come up with here at that ballpark. And I love to read, and I would love to see more of those little libraries. I have too many books to give away, and just some benches to just relax and enjoy. That's I feel like we really need as well. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. And if you stay on for the rest of the meeting, we actually in executive session, when we're in executive session, we have Chris's video that will be playing, which talks about the updates. And I know your representative, Margaret, Director Perry, is very involved in making sure this project is
yes
clear off and continues to move forward. So we're working hard on it.
I even have a resident with me that would like to talk about it as well. She's one of my new residents, Miss Colma Abrigomova. She's been with us for how many years now?
A year.
A year, yeah. So if you want to talk about why would you like to have that?
Yes, it's our favorite place to there's a pretty good path, but it's a little bit now. I started walking to a different direction. It's more how can I say? It's more beautiful. This is beautiful, but it's boring. Just walking, one trash can, sometimes overflowing, no bench, no some yes, to stop, to take a breath.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is see if you can send your email in chat to Shalice. So when we have the update, probably Chris can send out just on that project, so the two of you can take a look together.
Oh, thank you so much. We love that.
Yeah, and now the daylight is shorter, much shorter, and to walk. It's very short period of time to we are able to walk there. So in the morning it's dark, it's evening it's dark. It would be good, some more lighting, more lighting on that path.
All of those are in the plan, and absolutely we'll have Chris send that out to you. They are looking at all of those angles for sure. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah,
Elaine, I
thank
see
you.
your hand up. I'm going to ask Shalise if she has someone else on the list. Thank you for coming. Shalise?
There is no one else on the list.
Perfect, Elaine, go for it. You want to start with your name and address, or you can send it in chat,
Yes,
whatever you.
I'm Elaine Wenger, and I live at 1200 Weatherstone Court in Reston. And I've lived in my house for, well, I moved in 1999, so I've been there in Reston for a long, long time. I suppose you all have looked at my appeal letter.
Yes.
I've done a little bit more homework on it, and I wanted to share that with the board, if I may. I am appealing the Covenants Committee's decision on 1202 Weatherstone Court because, frankly, I do not understand the decision. The mission of the Covenants Committee is to ensure that properties are kept in good repair. And according to the RA guidelines on gutters and downspouts are to be located and installed so that water runoff does not adversely affect the adjacent property. These are quotes taken from the RA website. When I made the initial complaint, I provided pictures which clearly show that the Singer's gutter extending over my driveway is not containing the water, and it is adversely affecting my property. So it seems to me that the Covenants Committee turned a blind eye to both their mission and to the RA guidelines when it came to the gutter at 1202. When I first appealed the decision, the committee appeared at the Singer's house on a sunny summer day to take pictures. The time to observe performance of gutters and downspouts is on a very rainy day or a day in winter when it has snowed or sleeted. Because I objected to the Covenants Committee's decision, they advised me to get an expert opinion. I had assumed the Covenants Committee, which makes rulings on compliance with RA guidelines, would have staff with expertise in the areas on which they make decisions. Nevertheless, I did consult the company which installed and services my gutters and downspouts on a regular basis. They had photos which included the Singer's gutter extending over my driveway. Their comments: the gutter is too small to contain the amount of water coming off the roof. The gutter helmets installed on top of the gutters only aggravate the problem. The person described it to me as like having a colander over the gutter with just a few holes for the water to go in. Because water is coming out on the opposite side from the downspout, either the pitch is off or the end cap is defective. The company that came to clean the Singer's gutters said that they made recommendations after the visit, indicating that they too found problems with the Singer's gutters. The Covenants Committee also told me that the Singer's house might have a design issue. Am I to understand if a house is found to have a design issue, it's okay for the water runoff to adversely affect the adjacent property, and that the guidelines do not apply to these folks? A realtor told me that the
Elaine, that's 3
Miss
minutes.
Elaine, yes.
A realtor, can I continue?
Sure.
Hello?
If you want to get towards, yes, Elaine, if you want to get towards wrapping up, and we're going to discuss this in executive session. So
Okay.
go ahead, wrap up. Go ahead.
A realtor told me that the Singer's gutter downspout configuration might not be installed according to the building code. So I checked the other garage townhouses in the cluster with the same style of front as the Singer's house. Every one of those other houses had a downspout coming down in the front of their house, allowing runoff to go directly into the median strip or grassy area. On the Singer's house, the downspout wraps around the house. I have provided photos of the other houses along with addresses, if you want to check those out.
Thank you.
Whether
Thank you,
the
Elaine.
configuration is according to code does not matter to me. What matters is whether that configuration causes a problem to my property. The configuration of the Singer's downspout, along with its current defects of not totally containing water in the gutter and downspout, puts runoff onto my driveway instead of into the median strip. I talked to one owner with the same style of house as the Singer's house. When he
Elaine, I
replaced-
have to interrupt here just because we have a few others, but if you want to hang on, and when we go into executive session, if we have any questions, we'll bring you in. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, we do have a few others waiting. Sorry, I think you're on mute. But we will get back to you when we go into executive session. Any others, Shalice, do you have?
Sir, I
do not
believe
have
the,
those.
I believe I saw the Singer family raise their hands.
I just haven't had the opportunity to see the agenda for tonight, as I understand that this particular issue will be brought into executive session, and that would be the appropriate time for comment. Is that correct?
Sure, we can bring you in at that time if any of the directors have questions. Absolutely.
Well, in that event, we'll wait and see if you all would actually like to hear from us.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any others? Shalice, Sean? Any other member comments? Okay, moving on. Sean, I'm assuming that's a no?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, and I did get Jude's request that she wants to make her comment during executive session, so we'll bring her in at that point. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Perfect. Thank you, folks. Okay, so motion to move into executive session, folks. Directors,
So moved.
thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. I think that's unanimous.
I didn't see who made the second.
John. There were multiple seconds. We'll go with John.
You said John. Okay.
Yes. Thank
Hold
you
on
so much.
just a second. Let me redo the breakout room to get ready to add the guest.
Okay.
Jaleesa, I think the breakout room is for the guests is if the board wants to bring them in.
Okay.
Just Jude to make her statement.
Okay. And you will let me know if she needs to be added, or would you like me to add her now at the beginning?
Can you add Jude when we go in so she can make her comment and then we can, she can.
Okay, I'm adding her now then.
Madam
Thank you.
President, I
Yes.
do have a comment as soon as we get in regarding this.
Do you want Jude to be added in after? Margaret, okay. Shalice,
so
did you get that?
So you want me to add her now or after?
After.
Okay, I have to recreate the break room then.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second to recreate it.
No worries. Just want to throw it there that we're still 7 minutes ahead of our schedule. So we're still getting out at 9:30. Don't worry, folks. It'll be out.
Yes, there. Add to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Shoemaker, Director of Capital Projects. I'm here to give you a brief update on third quarter projects. Just over 50% of the 6.4. Good evening. My name is Chris Shoemaker, Director of Capital Projects. I'm here to give you a brief update on third quarter projects. First off is an overview of the capital project statuses. Of the 69 projects scheduled this year, 27 have been completed, 21 are in progress, and 20 have been scheduled. The 2 projects that were canceled were discussed during the previous quarter update, as well as the emergency project that occurred at CSF.
You should be hearing this video.
The first of the third quarter project highlights are the multipurpose court work at New.
You weren't hearing that, John?
Well, I was hearing Chris's video.
Okay.
Did you click join for the breakout room? Because I placed you in the breakout room. You just have to join.
Where do I do that?
You should have just got a little pop-up that asked you to join the room.
Ah, thank you. There it is.
Good evening. My name is Chris Shoemaker, Director of Capital Projects. I'm here to give you a brief update on third quarter projects. First off is an overview of the capital project statuses. Of the 69 projects scheduled this year, 27 have been completed, 21 are in progress, and 20 have been scheduled. The 2 projects that were canceled were discussed during the previous quarter update, as well as the emergency project that occurred at CSF. The first of the third quarter project highlights are the multipurpose court work at Newbridge and Walnut Branch. Both facilities received crack repairs and recoloring and new striping. In the bottom 3 images, you can see the before, during, and after of the work performed at Newbridge. The next project highlight are the pool roof replacements at Tall Oaks and Lake Audubon. Tall Oaks was replaced earlier this season before opening, and you can see a before and after image below. Lake Audubon was scheduled early this year, but was delayed in order to reopen it early to take the place of Ridge Heights, which opened late due to its pool refurbishment. Lake Audubon will be completed during the first week of October and will complete the set of projects for the year. Projects coming up in the fourth quarter, including the roll-up shop doors at CSF, bridge replacements, spillway maintenance on all of our lakes, the replacement of the Walnut Branch pergola, new chairs, tables, and umbrellas at North Shore Pool, structural repairs to Hunters Woods Pool roof, and parking and pathway projects. Now some updates on major projects, starting with Barton Hill Tennis. Barton Hill Tennis is still in the planning and scoping phase of the project lifecycle, and we are awaiting a decision on our zoning appeal to the BZA. As a result, the project will be delayed until 2023 or 2024, depending on that decision. The next major project is the Shatterwood pool refurbishment. This project is also still in the planning and scoping phase. However, we are preparing the design documentation we will need to submit to Fairfax County for permits, as well as for DRB approvals. In the meantime, we have also updated the project costs for the 2023 capital budget, and we are working to get bids on projects that don't require permits or DRB approval, and hope to have them underway before the end of the year. The next update is on Hunters Woods Ballfield redevelopment. Another major project update is the Hunters Woods Ballfield redevelopment. Earlier this year, Fairfax County required additional geotechnical testing in order to obtain site plan approval. We then performed the tests. However, the results were disputed between Fairfax County and the engineering team. However, we've been successful at resolving that dispute, and we anticipate site plan approval soon. Once we receive, the board will then need to approve KDP number 2 before we move into the estimation and procurement phase of the project lifecycle. We currently have $500,000 allocated in the Capital Asset Acquisition Reserve Fund for the project. However, until the estimation and procurement phase is completed, we will not know the exact cost of the project, and therefore a budget amendment may be required. We are working as hard as we can to obtain this updated estimate before the November budget approval. The next major project update is the Lake Throw Pool project. This project is currently in the implementation and construction phase of the project lifecycle, having broken ground on August 16th, starting with tree removals and erosion and sediment controls. The demolition of the pool basin, deck, and retaining walls is nearly complete, and the contractor will be working on site grading next. We are currently 7 days behind schedule due to weather and county requirements on additional tree removals that were beyond scope. We hope to have the facility open in time for the 2023 swim season. However, if adverse weather conditions continue, this may delay the project even further. Updates will be given if we anticipate this schedule being delayed beyond opening for 2023. The next few slides depict some of the progress occurring on the project, including tree removals, the demolition of the pool deck, and retaining walls.
Hi, Jude. We're putting you back into the executive session, so you should have a pop-up on your screen.
Now for a brief update on third quarter capital spending for 2022. Of the $6.4 million budgeted, just over $1 billion has been spent, with another $5.3 million remaining to execute. We are currently forecasting a negative variance of $26,000. This is primarily due to the ongoing supply chain impacts and inflation the construction industry has been seeing throughout the year. Also remember that just over 50% of the $6.4 million budget is just in Lake Throw, which has only begun construction in the last month. We anticipate more funding to be executed before the end of the year as this project progresses. For questions, comments, or concerns on any capital projects, please contact us at capitalprojects@reston.org, visit the Capital webpage, or call us at 703-435-6556. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to update you again on our cluster outreach initiatives. My name is Megan McCosey. I'm the Community Outreach Manager, presenting to you tonight along with Cam Adams, the Director of Covenants. Covenant staff continues to structure our outreach initiatives around a series of multimodal communication touchpoints to include our Cluster Connect newsletter, most recently published on June 28th and August 30th, with our final issue of the year being published on October 25th. We also continue to receive extremely positive feedback and inquiries from our May 9th meet and greet for cluster leadership, one in a series of virtual meetings conducted for cluster leaders around a current topic of interest. The May 9th meeting was on site lighting in Reston. We will be conducting a final meet and greet meeting before the end of the year with the topic and date to be announced shortly. Covenant staff also recently released a frequently asked question video, a third in a series of videos aimed at answering questions that staff most frequently received. This third video was publicized in the July issue of RA News. We have also continued with our robust efforts concerning internal staff training and external education pieces, to include our Covenant staff design review training conducted in May of 2022, follow-up decision writing training in August of 2022, flipbook management training conducted in September of 22, with our post-design review process to include fieldwork training coming soon, and a fact sheet for realtors and title company representatives also coming soon. Show and tell walking tours continue to be the most effective component of Covenant's outreach campaign. They are popular, well-attended, and consistently open the door to a lasting, productive relationship between Reston Association and cluster and condominium associations. Covenant staff has conducted show and tells this year with a wide variety of sub-homeowners associations, to include Waterview Cluster, Valley and Park Cluster, Lake Anne of Reston Condominium, Cedar Cove Cluster, and Southgate Square Cluster. We are projecting completion of 22 show and tells by the end of the 2022 calendar year. Staff continues its extremely important work of supporting cluster and condominium associations in updating their standards, with 101 cluster standard updates having been reviewed so far in calendar year 2022. For comparison's sake, 127 standard update applications were reviewed in calendar year 2021. DRB reviews of standard update applications are conducted at consultation and panel levels, offering significantly shorter wait times from application submission to review, approval, and publication of the updated standard in the cluster's digital standard book online. Speaking of digital standard books online, advisory staff has implemented a system for keeping flipbooks updated within 30 days of issuance of a DRB approval of a cluster standard update application. In addition, specific audit projects of flipbooks continue with various cluster associations. It should be noted that evaluation of the flipbook or digital standard book online platform is ongoing. Finally, Covenant's legal seminar for cluster leadership is backed by extremely popular demand and scheduled for September 19th at 7 p.m., conducted virtually via Zoom with presenters from Chadwick, Washington, Moriarty, Elmore, and Bunn. Topics from Covenant's 2021 legal seminar included Virginia State Legislative Update, information on fair housing, bankruptcy, covenant enforcement, top 10 rules and policies for associations, e-meetings, procedures, and best practices, and an extremely active and engaging question and answer session at the end. We hope you'll consider joining us. Thanks so much for the opportunity to keep you updated on our outreach initiatives. Please feel free to send any questions or comments to me or to Cam Adams at the email addresses listed on this slide, to include a request for a link to our upcoming legal seminar or to be added to our Cluster Connect newsletter distribution list. Thanks again and take care.
Greetings. My name is Erwin Flashman. I am the Secretary of the RA Board of Directors. In June of 2020, the board decided that the Secretary should render a quarterly update on the progress of work mandated by a board-approved motion which had not yet been completed by the beginning of the quarter or was ongoing during the quarter. This video is that report for the third quarter of this year and represents the status of matters as of the completion by staff of its review of these matters through September 15, 2022. There are a total of 26 board motions on which work continued. 5 deal with environmentally related matters, 3 with matters related to the development of a new website, 3 with recreational facilities, and 3 with the review of the Reston Comprehensive Plan. 2 deal with the establishment of lighting and pickleball at Martin Hill Tennis Courts, 2 with a review of board resolutions. The specific details of these motions, including the dates of approval, the specific proposals, and the voting record of the board on each, as well as the work done to date and to be done, are set out in the board packet for the September 22, 2022 board meeting. My purpose here is to provide you with a brief overview of the status of these matters. I have numbered each item from 1 to 26, where a topic is dealt with in more than one motion. I will skip a discussion of the matter until we reach the last motion which dealt with it, and then talk about all of the relevant items. The matters are numbered in chronological order, starting with the oldest from the board meeting of June 25, 2020. We begin with item number 1. On June 25, 2020, the board approved moving forward with the conversion of the Hunters Woods ball field to a park area. The site plan for the project is pending at the county. A required boring was submitted to the county recently, and the DRB approved the plan in 2020. The county approval for the minor site plan is anticipated to be issued shortly. Item number 2 will be covered together with item number 16. Item number 3. On July 23, 2020, the board directed the board and the CEO to establish a periodic review of business processes and controls. Treasurer Petrine gave a presentation on the topic at the February 2022 board meeting, and staff will work with the fiscal committee to outline the basics of the controls and procedures in place, with the understanding that the new CEO may wish to update them. All 3 of the items on this slide will be discussed at another later number. Item number 4 will be covered with item number 13. Item number 5 will be covered with item number 26. and item number 6 will be covered with item number 16. Item number 7. On June 24, 2021, the board directed the CEO to record all public expressions by members on the closing or repurposing of any RA pools and provide a monthly report on the same to PRAC. The reports are compiled from member comments at board meetings, on social media, emails, and specific survey, and continue to be delivered to PRAC and made available to any requesting member. Item number 8 will be covered with item number 19. Item number 9. On July 17, 2021, the board approved the creation of the position of Director of Environmental Services at the senior leadership team level to be budgeted for the 2022-23 budget. A job description is under discussion, and recruitment is pending the finalization of that determination. Item number 10. On September 23, 2021, the board approved a set of trainings and discussions for the board on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The first of which is a web-based training for board members to take individually. Board members have been invited to take this training. A facilitator workshop for the board was held. It is anticipated there will be further discussions of additional training in the near term. Item number 11 will be covered with item number 17. Item number 12. On January 27, 2022, the board approved the retention of Albert Risk Management Consultants to assist it in securing a comprehensive insurance package for the RA. Insurance specifications were sent out to 4 brokers. Only one bid was received, and after consultation with the fiscal committee, the board voted to accept the bid. This item has been completed. Item number 4 is being discussed here with item number 13. Item number 4. On February 25, 2021, the board voted to accept the Recreational Facilities Working Group's report, forward a copy to Communications for information to members, and to the Fiscal Committee for its analysis to be completed in May and be presented to the board. The board held a work session on the matter on May 20, 2021, and held a joint meeting with PRAC on the matter on October 27, 2021. Communications issued several communiques referencing the material for the members. The Fiscal Committee continues its review as part of its review of the 2022-23 budget process and will present its analysis at a future board meeting. Item number 13. On January 27, 2022, the board directed staff to develop a professional services proposal and execution timeline for the development and implementation of an overall community survey of community wants, needs, and desires, as recommended by PRAC, along with the 2022-23 budget impacts. Staff, working with the PRAC member Jane Baum, sent out a request for information and proposal in June, received responses with budget estimates, and has selected a preferred vendor. Board approval is pending for expenditure of funds for 2022 or 2023. Item 14 will be covered together with item number 26. Item 15. On January 27, 2022, the board approved the addition of the development designated as Reston Arboretum to become subject to the RA deed and to establish a cluster association or its equivalent and pay the full assessment per unit. The supplementary declaration has been signed by both parties and the supplementary declaration has been recorded. This matter has been completed. On item 16, we report to you on item 2, 6, and 16. Item 2. On July 23, 2020, the board directed staff to move forward with the development of an interactive website. Item 6. On June 24, 2021, the board urged the IT committee to hold its first meeting as soon as possible and make updates to the website its first priority. Whipfly was named as the virtual CIO in October 2021. The IT committee met on December 13, 2021, and the board and IT committee met on January 5, 2022. The CIO met with the communications director to coordinate matters, and the board approved the IT work plan on May 26, 2022. On September 15, 2022, the IT committee met with the vendor with which RA had earlier had initial conversations to review their capabilities and proposal to determine whether to recommend to the board entering into negotiations for a contract for services and which services would be used, if any. The committee's recommendations are pending. Item 16, on February 24, 2022, the board directed the IT committee to review the contract and services with Member Suites vendor and make recommendations for the board's March 2022 meeting. The contract was renewed for 1 year. The IT committee will review such contracts in the future. This item is considered completed. Item 17. Item 11 and 17 are reported on here. Item 11. On November 10, 2021, the board directed the Recreation and Communication staff to work with PrAC to host a focus meeting with the Barton Hill community to inform it of the impacts on tennis facilities, renovation to include lighting and pickleball, and their impacts on traffic. To enable this directive, Kimley Horn, the engineers for the project, and MTAC examined potential site constraints and pathway crossing changes. Kimley Horn recommended a diagram to represent lighting and landscaping to mitigate noise and lighting year-round. On March 10, 2022, a determination letter from the county zoning administrator indicated a PRC plan had to be filed for the project because the lighting was considered not to be contained within the earlier site plan approval, nor was it an allowable exception. This requirement would be both costly and time-consuming. Item 17. On February 24, 2022, the board authorized retention of outside counsel to advise on the county determination and advocate with the county on behalf of RA with respect to these matters. The board retained counsel who filed an appeal before the Board of Zoning Appeals, the BZA, which was argued on July 2022. The matter is pending decision scheduled to be rendered at a hearing to be held on September 28, 2022. The board has requested that staff seek a deferral of that hearing for at least 1 month to allow further conversations with the county zoning administrator and the Hunter Mill supervisor concerning what might be required for a modified PRC plan submission and other alternatives to develop more information for a future decision regarding the BZA hearing. Item 18. On March 24, 2022, the board approved the refurbishment of Shatterwood Pool under Option 2. Kimley Horn is working on the matter, and staff submitted a sketch to the County Health Department and Land Services Division to obtain further guidance. Feedback from these entities is pending. Item 19, which includes Item 8. Item 8. On June 24, 2021, the board directed the Board Governance Committee to review the use of the phrase ex officio in board resolutions and report back to the board by September 2021. The matter is pending. Item 19. On May 26, 2022, the board directed Secretary Flashman and General Counsel Anthony Champ, the review group, to review all board resolutions for various purposes, including internal inconsistencies and those with the governing documents, unenforceable statements of policy, and those inconsistent with RA philosophy. It is estimated that this project will take roughly 1 year to complete. The review group will report on its progress and bring recommendations to the board for action from time to time. The first report with examples of the draft revisions is being presented at this month's board meeting. Item 20. On June 23, 2022, the board directed staff to evaluate the conversion of gas-powered mowers and landscaping equipment to electric-powered machines with a cost analysis for consideration in the 2023 budget development. This is in progress. Items 21 through 25 were all decided at the board meeting of June 23, 2022. Item 21. The board directed staff to ascertain the cost of converting remaining parking lot lights to LEDs for the board's consideration for the 2023 budget development. This is in progress. 22. The board directed staff to inventory, map, and develop an inspection and maintenance schedule for all RA-owned drainage culverts by October 2022. This is in progress. Item 23. The board directed staff to present proposals and cost estimates to provide 1 acre of canopy reforestation to the board as part of the 2023 budget development. This is in progress. Number 24. The board directed staff to accelerate the replacement of bench and trash can lumber with recycled materials with completion by the end of 2025. This is in progress. 25, the board directed staff to file a code compliance complaint with Fairfax County regarding 1601 Washington Plaza. Covenants will follow up on this. Item 26 includes material from item 5 and item 14. Item 5. On June 15, 2021, the board expressed its sense that the Reston Comprehensive Plan, or RCP, should remain committed to equity and Reston's founding principles to assure Reston's economic vitality is fully available to all members, contributes towards Reston's readiness for the future, and connects assets to resources. Sections of the task force draft touch on these matters, and on March 2, 2022, the RA hosted a town hall on the plan. Item 14. On January 27, 2022, the board requested the EAC, PRAC, and MTAC to review the relevant chapters of the draft RCP and make recommendations to the board in accordance with the review schedule. The advisory committees have provided their recommendations on the task force draft, but the county staff has issued a substantially different version of the RCP. A motion will be presented to the board at its meeting on September 2022 concerning these matters. Item 26. On July 28, 2022, the board directed the acting CEO to work with the president, secretary, and directors Dodd and Perry to develop final language for members' advocacy points and a member outreach plan on RA's approved positions on the comprehensive plan. The advocacy points were completed and the outreach plan developed. The advocacy points are posted on the RA website, Facebook page, and are being distributed at various activities and at an RA meeting to be held on September 29 concerning the comprehensive plan. Members are being asked to indicate their agreement with these points through the website. This concludes the third quarterly Secretary's report on open board motions for the period June 2020 to September 15, 2022. Thank you very much for your patient attention.
First reading on August 31st, 2022. I will limit my remarks to focus on the key drivers impacting the finances of Reston Association for these periods. But if you have any questions on the detail of the reports referred to herein, please do not hesitate to contact me or the Finance Department for clarification. For the year, total operating revenues have amounted to $19.1 million, and operating expenses less non-cash expenses like depreciation and amortization amounted to $11.3 million. Through August, total revenues are $982,000 or 14.3% better than budget. Of that total positive variance, revenues account for 23%, led primarily by better than budgeted performance in recreational services, $239,000. Expenses account for the remaining 76%, led by cost savings and timing differences in salaries and benefits of $597,000 and service costs of $142,000. The balance sheet remains very strong. We have adequate cash balances to cover expected operating expenses, which have averaged between $1 and $1.5 million a month. We also maintain adequate capital reserves in cash and investments to cover budgeted capital repairs and improvements, and accounts receivable are at very manageable levels, with conversions to cash continuing as expected. RA has a stronger cash position than a year ago by $1.9 million. While current market conditions have adversely impacted the value of the RRF investment portfolio, reflected in a 12.2% decline on a year-over-year basis, reserves continue to exceed policy requirements and the anticipated repair and replacement schedule set by the professional staff. And accounts receivable have declined by $347,000 for the month of August. All but $2,900 of this represent collections on 22 2022 assessments during the month. One final summary observation on this detailed report, which bears repeating. Operating revenues net of operating expenses are running 4.6% better than budget due to spending restraints and timing differences in expenses. Savings realized in people costs have been $597,000 or 76% of the total positive variance in operating expenses, as you can see here. This concludes my report for the month. If you have any questions at all on the financials or budgets, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can most conveniently do so by email at bodpatrine@reston.org, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Recently, the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force adopted its final version of its draft comprehensive plan for Reston. And today I got John Moody. Welcome.
Good to see you again, Larry.
John has been working on this very diligently for a long time as RA's task force representative and I as the alternate. And we're here today to talk about the next steps in the process. As many Restonians know, the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force has been hard at work for over 2 years updating Reston's master plan. The task force, which includes Reston citizens, property owners and their representatives, and community organization representatives, has been reviewing the prior plan adopted in 2014 and 2015. The goal is to produce a new plan that is reflective of the community's broad interests across many topics.
Those topics include land use and infrastructure, transportation, parks and recreation, environmental stewardship, affordable housing, community health and equity, and others. As the comprehensive plan is a guide for new and redevelopment, as well as community investment and reinvestment, it's important that Restonians voice their support or lack of it for those parts of the plan in which they are interested.
In the coming weeks, there will be many opportunities to voice your opinions or concerns regarding the draft plan. It is important for as many of you as possible to take advantage of these opportunities, as this is a very important part of the process. We will provide notice of each of these opportunities once the dates and times are finalized.
I think that making it a priority for new development to be a part of the Reston Association and part of the fees is very important.
It would make sense that as new development comes in, that they also contribute and help maintain what we all enjoy, which is the beauty of the pathways, the pools, and all the other amenities that Reston provides for the community.
For this area, yes, we have adequate facilities, but if we're going to open it up to all those high rises and that are going in down by the toll road, then no, we would need more facilities in that direction.
The pools aren't overcrowded. We're at a good spot right now, but if we overdevelop, I don't want to look like in 10, 15 years, downtown Silver Spring. I don't want to look like downtown DC. I don't want to look like a metropolitan city.
As one of the first and best examples of a planned community in the nation, many Reston Association facilities are freely available to all, including non-members. RA provides parks, recreation, and amenities such as pools, tennis courts, multipurpose courts, playgrounds, trails, and other recreational open spaces. The association repairs and replaces the capital facilities through its annual operating and capital budgets. As a community, we feel non-RA member developments should share in the cost of maintaining and repairing those facilities that are open to the public.
At this important moment in Reston's history, as new development and redevelopment take shape, we must consider all of the impacts of potential population growth in the community. To accommodate this growth, added capacity to RA facilities and increased maintenance costs should be planned through development contributions as well as increased RA membership. And to assure that Reston's future facility needs are well planned for, we believe RA should be included in the evaluation and discussion of all proposed recreational facilities by developers and the county.
We just moved from DC to Reston last year to kind of get away from overpopulation and more space and the quiet safetiness. We really enjoy the safety and the space and the nature here in Reston. That's very important to us.
I think it's really important that the county keeps in mind how many people they think are going to move here as they're building new things, and make sure that all modes of transportation, whether it's bike paths or the amount of lanes I think it's really important that they keep that in mind as they are developing.
I moved here before the North Point Village Shopping Center was built. It was a field. And I lived in that neighborhood, and I was so grateful when there was a Giant and a Starbucks and all of that. And it would be a shame for the developer to look at that and think about rezoning and putting up high rises.
I don't want to worry about underfunding in the schools. I don't want to worry about not having enough teachers, bus routes getting cut. There's so much that comes every time you build a big building or another apartment complex.
Our big issue is staff overall, and I think most schools face that issue right now. And if we had double the students but a similar amount of number of staff, maybe a little bit more, and the schools aren't really big enough, we would run into a huge issue. So it would have to be a part of the planning process.
I do believe that at some point they do need to consider the infrastructure, the roadways, the common areas. You know, that's what people moved to Reston for back when I moved, is to, you know, have open spaces, playgrounds, places to just walk the pathways. All those amenities are what Reston was all about.
I think like right now this trail is like super centralized. If there were more trails like going off too, like for example one going the direction of Lake Ann or something, I'm sure they would encourage people to walk around more. 'Cause some of the little sidewalks right by the big roads are like, you know, not like the best thing to walk on. You'd probably rather drive.
The latest version of the comprehensive plan creates a scenario where Reston could possibly double its population. Now more than ever, we must recommit to the guiding principles that define our community. In particular, our village centers are the hallmark of our community design. These centers must continue to be easily accessible to our neighborhoods and provide the central commercial activities, grocery stores, and community gathering spaces that we all value today and promote community health in Reston. We must also insist that the comprehensive plan be based on accurate population projections and require that development and infrastructure capacity are planned simultaneously. This will ensure that our entire community continues to thrive as it grows.
And we want to make sure that future growth is handled responsibly. That's why we feel developers should submit plans for TSA properties for review to the RA Design Review Board to assure architectural consistency within Reston. As we see continued advancement in energy efficient technology, require new buildings to be energy efficient consistent with applicable LEED certifications. The comprehensive plan should preserve and protect the innovative and well-planned, inclusive mixed-income housing planning principles that have defined Reston Association's neighborhoods, and continue to apply those planning principles to development and redevelopment, including reaffirming RA land use resolutions, those related to natural and recreational areas, including golf courses and other open spaces.
The clean air, the trees, the amount of trees here. We live in a townhouse on the Red Trail, the Lake Thoreau, and we absolutely love it. And that's one of the reasons why we moved here.
Of course, I do understand the perspective of business and getting people in and then boosting the economy of that sort, but I think from the perspective of the charm of Reston, I think some of the development makes me a little bit uneasy, wary, just that it might lose that particular charm.
You know, I don't want to see Reston overbuild. You know, Reston, we have great nature trails. You know, you look around, it really is the nature that brings a lot of people. I see a lot of bird watchers come from all over the world just to come here, and when you start overdeveloping, you lose that.
I am not entirely against development. I am against the loss of all that green space. I know, like, not only is it a golf course, but like a lot of my neighbors and I use it as green space to like walk our dogs and play with them out there. So I think the loss of all of that would be really sad.
One of the great founding principles of Reston was the environment, and to keep the environment and to make it user-friendly, if you will, to keep the beauty of it, to walking paths, bike paths, and not just have a great big naked field with all these high-rises in it. And I think you need to leave that, and you need to keep that in mind when you're developing Reston.
Maintaining and managing Reston's environmental health into the future is a key element that should be recognized in the comprehensive plan. Reston has been recognized on the world stage as a biophilic city, which is unique to Fairfax County, underscoring the need for developers to adhere to a higher standard of environmental stewardship. Reston's vision includes mitigation of and adaptation to negative impacts of climate change and should be included in all construction.
As new development and redevelopment are expected, attention should be paid to environmental impacts. All development should employ on-site water detention and green technologies to manage stormwater runoff with consideration for adjacent properties. Another key element is solid waste management during construction and operation, requiring avoidance of waste creation and appropriate management of any unavoidable waste. And last but not least, Reston's tree canopy should be preserved and enhanced by planting a variety of native, resilient tree species.
I think traffic right now is already terrible. I do kind of worry about that now it doesn't seem like there's much being done about the traffic.
Wheelie Avenue now in the morning is like a traffic jam, you know, because everybody's trying to avoid the toll road or, you know, going down Route 7.
Like, we're not dropping 4 brand new apartment complexes, building 3 brand new pools, and then talking about the traffic pattern, you know, so that's my worry.
I very much like the bike lanes I've seen the last 3 years. They've been a great help to get around Reston. Could they add more bike lanes? Sure.
I'm from Florida, so I am not used to the level of bike trails around here, and I absolutely love it. I bike to my jobs a lot of days, so it's really great that there's so many places where I can bike here that I feel like protected from the road. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I think the roads are being left as they are. We're a much smaller community. I think the intent of all these high rises going in was the metro, but not everyone's going to use the metro. People have cars. They are going to start driving all over the place, and no, we do not have the roads to facilitate that.
Transportation is a major issue to consider as Reston continues to grow. During project planning of any future developments, safety for everyone must be emphasized, and nearby residents, both homeowners and renters, should be consulted. Equity in meeting transportation needs must be attained for all, including pedestrians, bikers, drivers, and others. The impacts that transportation will have on our future must be considered, including significant capital improvements for our pedestrians and bicycle infrastructure. Traffic signal timing and road widths should not favor cars over pedestrians. We all share this lovely community and enjoy all the different ways that we can navigate the pathways and roadways alike.
Reston is a really special place. It's a very special community, and to maintain what makes it so special, if we can build around that and we can welcome more people, but also plan accordingly so that we can grow with ease, with the environment, with the communities in mind, and I really just want this community to thrive.
A key element on how Reston was founded was equity among all its residents. It demands that basic human needs be met for all Restonians. These needs include adequate housing for all demographics and income levels, access to health care, including mental health, opportunities for education and employment at a living wage, and the fulfillment of Reston's 7 basic founding principles.
I think the county should take a more serious approach as they're developing new development and to really consider what it's going to do to the infrastructure, the schools, the common area, the roadways, the pathways. I know Reston for years had the most trees in a community, and that was something that we celebrated.
We live in a great place. We really do. It's a beautiful place. It's convenient to a lot. It offers a lot of conveniences and amenities, and I think it's important that it stay that way.
We've lived all over the DMV, but when it comes to a really good area, place to raise your family, I mean, there's not too many places I can count on my hands anymore outside of a metropolitan city that I can let my kids go across the street to the playground.
I think it's tough because like areas like Lake Ann are really pretty, but you know, people also need places to live, and I think like high rises are good for housing more people. So it's a balance.
What Reston is going to look like in 30 years, I think it's going to be completely different, but they need to manage all aspects of what that extra population is going to bring.
As the new CEO of the Reston Association, and someone who has spent many years working with land use matters and zoning like these, I'm excited to work with my fellow colleagues and now my neighbors here in Reston to make sure that Reston continues to grow in a healthy and responsible way into the future. We encourage you to get engaged and follow the updates as the Fairfax County Planning and Zoning and the Board of Supervisors will be acting on the Reston Comprehensive Plan later this fall. The comprehensive plan changes will affect Reston now and into the future. Please take time to explore the materials and advocacy positions on reston.org. Attend local meetings held by RA and Supervisor Walter Alcorn so that you are informed and educated on the proposed changes. This is the time to become informed and share your feedback and questions with the county.
Hi, I'm Chris Shoemaker, Director of Capital Projects. We're here at Lake Throw Pool today, and after an extensive community engagement process and a few delays, we're excited to announce we're beginning construction here in the coming weeks. The original issue with this facility that triggered the project from the beginning was the degradation of this timber retaining wall that supports the entire east side of the facility. And as a benefit of this renovation, we'll be installing an overlook deck that will be set further back from the water line and allow sweeping views of the lake. To accommodate this overlook deck, this entire section will be removed, including the grass beach as well as the spa. Then the deck will then be extended out almost to where the existing fence line is to provide you sweeping views of the lake. In order to make the spa accessible, which right now it currently has to use stairs to get access to, we're going to relocate it to the wading pool, where that will be at the same grade as the rest of the facility and be more accessible for those in wheelchairs. We'll be installing a zero depth here, which will allow accessibility into the pool. And the deep end will then be relocated where the existing shallow end is. We're regrading the parking lot for ADA accessibility. As you can see, it's quite steep here. As part of the regrading, we'll be installing a new pollinator garden about here, which will include birdhouses as well as native plantings. In the coming weeks, we anticipate the start of construction, beginning with demolition, which will be the loudest during the first few months. And we anticipate the completion of the project sometime next summer. For more information on this project or others, please contact the Capital Projects Department at capitalprojects@reston.org or call us at 703-435-6556.
Hi, I'm Margaret Perry. I'm the new Reston Association Board Director for this district. I want to thank you all for coming out. We are here to thank our Fairfax County Police for being involved in our community. The importance of National Night Out is for you guys to get to know the police and for the police to get to know you. I'm Margaret Perry. I am the Reston Association Board Director for the Hunters Woods Dogwood District. We are out and about this evening to celebrate National Night Out. It is a national event throughout the entire United States, and here in Reston there are apparently 15 different opportunities to participate. The benefit for National Night Out is that it gives the community the chance to meet our local police, and it gives the local police a chance to meet the community. And that two-way partnership is so important so that we can collaborate and get to know each other and feel safe and protected in our community.
Some of you, I've seen some familiar faces working around in the community. I'm looking forward to getting back out with you all. You may see me back on a bike again, but it is very important that we keep those open lines of communication. And this is a partnership, right? A partnership to keep our community safe and to prevent crime.
Tonight I have visited two locations. I visited the Fellowship House at Hunters Woods, and currently we're at the Kathy Hudgens Community Center, which was previously Southgate Community Center. And we're just excited to really be out meeting the various community members, the people who live and reside and use these facilities. Don't let them steal our heart! Besides getting to know each other, knowing the police, knowing our community, it gives us the opportunity to ask questions, to find out if there's things that you've always wanted to ask the police but didn't want to necessarily call the local precinct. Tonight is a great opportunity. We get to meet many different police officers that come through these events, and so it's really nice to put a face to that badge. So one of the nice things that we have here in Reston is we work with the Fairfax County Police, but there is a Reston District Station. And we have multiple different types of patrols, and that includes bicycle patrols, motorcycle patrols, and of course police and foot patrols, which is a very unique piece because you don't always see that in every community. So it's very exciting to be able to really get to know and meet our local police and those who serve our public. And we're very grateful that they want to be out here introducing themselves.
Hello, I'm Larry Butler with the Reston Association, and I'm here today to welcome Reston Association's new Chief Executive Officer, Mac Cummins. And I first want to welcome Mac to Reston. So,
thanks, Larry.
Welcome to the community. And just, a couple quick questions. Why are you so excited to come to Reston and lead the Reston Association?
I've followed Reston for a number of years, and there's a lot of really exciting things going on here in the association. I think one of the biggest reasons that I am so impressed with Reston, I've spent most of my career and life in the Southwest, and the way Reston decided, and this was a lot of Robert Simon's vision, to lay out all of the housing and more importantly to use the land in a really responsible way to protect open space, native vegetation, local habitat, those kinds of things is really impressive to me. And I'm looking forward to interacting with that nature, whether it's on a bike ride or a walk or any of those kinds of things.
And of course we have the four lakes as well.
Oh yeah. In fact, just the beauty of that is striking, especially from the public spaces.
What are the amenities are you excited about, for yourself and the family?
Probably the thing I'm most excited about is just being able to walk out on the trails and talk to people. I'm an avid bicyclist, so I'm looking forward to getting out on the bike lanes and seeing how all the community connects together. I also do a lot of running in the morning, so I think for that and the swimming pools, during the heat of the summer, those kinds of things are what we're most excited about.
It's a great place to pursue those passions. Now, tell me a little bit about your background. So, I think you come from a community planning background. Well, clearly, Reston was a model back in the 60s for that. So maybe give us a little idea of what your background is.
So my background really has been in community building. I've spent the last 20 years doing city planning and working on thinking about how to connect people with physical spaces, thinking about things like affordable housing, environmental stewardship, how to work with the land in a way that is eco-responsible, and also just how people want to interact with each other. And the way I see the association working right now, I think all those things are being done really well, and I'm looking forward to building on that.
So Mac, is your family excited to come to Reston?
Yeah, they are. We're all really, really excited to get here and get immersed in the community completely. So my daughter's in high school, so we're going to see a lot of the residents of the association around at a lot of those types of events throughout the school year, of course, and then throughout the other seasons in the RA facilities. And we're all really, really excited just to be in a place that has such a great sense of community around it. So looking forward to making new friends, both at the adult level for my wife and I, and at the high school level for my daughter, for sure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I know I'm personally excited to have you,
Thank you, Sean. Directors, I just want to remind you that you're on mute when you come out of executive session. I can make the cleansing motion if somebody else would like to, go for it. Any takers? No. I move that Reston Association Board of Directors certifies to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session, i.e. personnel, contractual violation, consultation with counsel, covenants committee decision appeal, were discussed and considered by the board during executive session. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. John, are you a yes or a no?
You're a no. Okay. And Jennifer, you were a yes? So all yeses, John is the only no. Perfect. Anybody want to, or I can do this again, move to ratify and approve the decision reached in executive session to adopt the September legal committee report and affirm the decisions reached. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. John, are you a no on this? You're on mute, John.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the motion. Or has the vote already been taken?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm voting against the motion because I believe that in order for the actions that we take regarding the legal committee to be valid and enforceable, we need to take those actions in open session. And I am more than happy to have a conversation with any or all of my fellow directors on this point, but it's not something I'm comfortable doing in executive session and not doing in open session. It potentially leaves our actions to be void or voidable under the Property Owners Association Act. That's why I vote no.
Council, I think we have, Council, if you want to weigh in on this in a memo to the board, we can discuss this at a later board meeting. Thank you, John, for your comments. Jennifer, were you a yes or a no?
I vote against.
No. Okay, perfect. Okay, any abstentions? If not, everyone else is a yes. Perfect. Okay. Moving on. Does any director want to make the Weatherstone Court appeal motion? Jennifer, did you want to do that? Or do you want
Sure, I motion to accept the appeal for 1202 Weatherstone Court.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you, folks. With that, I'm gonna, so Singer family and Elaine, staff will be getting in touch with you. The board has decided to grant the appeal, but they will need additional information, and I'm sure staff will keep you updated. Thank you for joining us this evening. Perfect. Thanks. That said, Mac, this is your show. We have agenda item F, which is the third quarter CEO update. This is your first update as CEO. Welcome. Take us away.
All right, thank you, members of the board. I know we're a few minutes behind, but I will, keep myself here to 5 minutes. Normally our staff, as part of the CEO, give a report out on work product and a number of things that have been accomplished over the last quarter. We will certainly be looking at continuing to do that, but I thought it might be good for my first board meeting, which happens to coincide with a quarterly CEO report, to talk to the community, you all, and of course the general membership about onboarding as a new CEO and what I am doing to look into the organization and more importantly, how we provide service to the members and the community at large. Because I think in terms of 30, 60, 90-day plans and how those things can help influence and inform providing that service. So by way of starting, I think of the primary focus of RA as being providing members membership service, and we're a service-oriented organization. And in thinking about that, and thinking about how we communicate with our members and what types of business lines we offer and the kinds of comments that we get back and how we can, look at reinforcing the things that we're doing really, really well and look at some things that we've heard that members are asking for that we're either not doing or could do longer or different or those kinds of things. I think a lot about systems, and I think about how those systems are put in place and the structure that's put there to reinforce the outcomes that we're looking for, and or how those systems overlap. So for example, when we think about communication systems and we think about our Parks and Rec programs and we think about the way membership interacts with the organization, there's a lot of different systems that overlap. And so I'm looking at a number of, I'll say, topical or functional areas where those systems and business lines come to fruition. in day-to-day life. And in the first 30 days, I really sort of focused in on 5, I'll say again, topical areas. And I'll list those off and just talk about a few of the big things that I have been up to, and then talk about kind of where I'm headed. And at the end of this, I think you'll see how it'll fit into some of your dialogues around strategic planning and what 23 might look like, and moving past the budget process, the budget adoption being roughly the end of the 90-day period. The 5 main areas I've spent time on are people, processes, technology as a whole, landscape, and by landscape I don't mean physical landscape out out on the front lawn, but rather the environment within which we're working, including all the external factors and the strategies and things that go into that landscape. And then probably the most important thing, the customers themselves, and the membership. One of the things I actually just mentioned to my wife Wendy was I've been attending a whole lot of events, and it is really nice to work at a place where I'm going to these events and not one of them feels at all like work. So when I'm out talking to people at the multicultural event, or pop into the farmers market at Lake Ann, or I go to the doggy paddle event, or a host of these things, that we're getting a chance to see for the first time, I'm spending time trying to, number one, I obviously introduce myself to everybody, but I'm also trying to experience those as a focus group of one, if you will, where I am trying to experience what the normal member would experience. And that includes things like, I need to register for a pass. I go to the website by myself with no help to try to accomplish that and see what that experience is like. When I go to a facility, I go to the front door and try to experience that. So when I hear a comment from a member, I'm trying to have an analogy to put that to. So I want to speak to a few of the highlights of that very quickly. I do believe that people, and you'll hear this too in our budget presentation later, and the human capital of an organization are its most important resource. And I also very much am a believer in what Brene Brown calls, the marble jar, and trust being built one small marble at a time through interaction. So I try to be very thoughtful about that, and I'm spending as much time as I can getting to know our staff and understanding what they do. So for example, I've been out with our aquatics and tennis staff and talking to members while we're out looking at all the different facilities. And I'm awed that our staff know a number, if not almost all of these members by name. They know what their stories are. They know how they, want to interact with us. And we're out talking about, those sorts of things. I spent time with our HR department thinking about the organizational development plan and where we're investing in our staff, and thinking about the value add of the group, especially as I talk to you all about the policy objectives that you're looking to occur, not just in the short term, but over the long term. I spoke a little bit to process earlier, but in my own identification and looking at the business lines and service delivery, I've spent time trying to process map a little bit and understand a number of those different things, again, as I do my own focus group of one, but also sit down with the leadership. I've spent time with the leadership, asking them about where they're spending their time and where we're spending time looking at short-term things. Sometimes there are immediate things that come up, but equally as important, long-term strategy. And that will fold into some of our dialogue when we get, into early part of next year. From a tech standpoint, I've thought a lot about, and again, I'm only here 30 days, but I have been looking at how we currently use social media or some of our technological platforms to communicate and reach our membership. And obviously, some of you have mentioned to me, and I've been out in the community and talking with them, how do you typically interact with our membership? Have you ever been to some member services? And looking at some of those things. So I will spend some time just observing who comes in and out of member services. Do they even know how to get to member services? That came up, in the first week as I spoke with one or two of you. We put a sign up just to show people when they come through one of the doors how to see the door, because sometimes it's confusing. I know it was confusing for me, again, as the focus group, and of course I work here. So I spent some time thinking about tech, and again, not a whole lot on that, but I am very intrigued as we get into the budget discussion later, the process mapping ideas that have come out of the IT committee and what that does and how we can use tech to leverage, again, how we are thinking about our end users, and the value add of frankly anything we do in any of these systems. And then I guess I'll stop with the landscape itself. Obviously, Reston does not exist in a vacuum. There are a lot of things going on that impact the quality of life, and many of you have heard me speak to the core service of Reston being in building, or I should say RA, in building community. And the things that impact that quality of life obviously will be important from my perspective to the organization, and being able to fold those in a meaningful way so we can bring things to you and help you all make the policy decisions you want to make to help guide the organization. And that there are a number of those things. Obviously, we interact with Fairfax County, and I don't want to forget somebody, so please, anyone listening in, just bear with me. But I'm getting around to meet all the people at the county, at RCC, Chamber of Commerce, a number of the major stakeholders in and around the community, trying to get into as many local businesses as I can, introduce myself, friends of Reston, and so forth. So effectively, that's where I've spent the first 30 days. I'm 2 minutes over, so I'm going to just sort of mention in general, my approach to the world is generally, as I started with, to look at the systems and think about how those systems and what our staff are currently doing reinforce how we get to the policy objectives that you are all setting for the overall organization on behalf of all of the members themselves. So I look at our job in terms of finding good data points and feedback from members about their experience in Reston and what we want to do with the community going forward. And there are some big things that you're all going to get to think about and talk about, from capital facilities to ongoing operations, and so forth. And so I just couldn't be more excited. I really, I'm kind of a type A guy, so I'm sure you're all getting to know that, but that's sort of where I'm at right now. And you'll hear more from me, as we go. And I'm looking forward to working with you all on that strategy going forward.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much. I think the next item on the agenda is also you. I don't know if Larry's going to help you with it, but go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Can we go ahead and pull up the presentation? As we get into draft one of the budget, I want to start with.
I just want to interrupt for one quick second. Dave, I did see that Dave Kerr is with us, our fiscal committee chair, and I know Dave Fiscal has some recommendations. Are you okay to wait till Mac's presentation to make your comments?
Certainly.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, Mac.
Great. Thank you. So my intent as I walk you through the draft one of the budget is to try to help tie together a number of value propositions that have come before you or you have offered in thinking about how to deliver service to the community, and how the capital budget will tie into that and the priorities that are being outlined for the 2023 time horizon. And there's a couple main components that I want to sort of start with and end with as you're all thinking about what very specific decisions to make about any particular line item. And as I think about those things, probably the first thing that I think about is the value that is being offered to the community relative to the total assessment. And the value proposition for the board, of course, is what do any of these additions or subtractions mean to the total assessment, and the bottom line that our members will be asked to contribute at the end of this budget process, and how comfortable you are as a group and gaining consensus on the appropriate amount to potentially raise that assessment if you decide to add services or change something in the budgetary process. And I think that's an important value thing to keep an eye on. The second thing that I will talk to you all about is one of the things that we will show you at the end is the potential to use budget surplus or savings to potentially help offset increased costs in the 2023 time horizon. And I know we've done that a couple of years. I think it's also important from a CEO or particularly new CEO perspective to point out that that is really one-time money. And though effective, in looking at what some may call a buy down, of the overall assessment, it is a one-time monetary thing. And certainly this is something we talked about a little bit with a few of the members of the fiscal committee. And though we have done it a couple of times, I do think it's worth talking about as a deliberate action. And so we'll propose some of these things that you all can chew on to think about how you want to address some potential cost increases. So how about we go ahead and go to the next slide? So this slide is really meant more for members of the public that are might be watching in our governing documents. There are very specific things that the board is charged with doing. The staff are charged with bringing the board options and staff analysis about potential impacts. And in the case of the budget, obviously these are fiscal related, but those fiscal impacts are meant to advance the policy objectives of the board relating to operations and or capital infrastructure that's necessary either out of desire or out of findings from the reserve study, which is done periodically. And then there are requirements based on a 10-year average to fund some of those capital improvements. And we'll walk through that more, as we go. So how about we hop to the next slide, Mike? By way of budget background, especially for those watching, we do a 2-year biennial budget. For anybody that has participated regularly in the budget process, and this is my first trip to this, because the deed requires us to set assessments on an annual basis, there is a lot of things that occur on an annual basis relative to budgeting. The board set the 23 budget as part of the biennial budget, really just as the 22 budget plus a 3% inflationary factor. And I'm sure the board members and any fiscal committee members that are watching would know that. General public may not. We're certainly going to be talking about more than that as we go through this budgetary process. So if you were a new observer, I think about this from a transparency standpoint, there are a number of things that are shown beyond just 22 plus 3%, which includes some subtractions, but primarily additions based on previous discussions in the community and with the board. So if we go ahead and jump to the next slide, one of the things I want to speak to and then hand it off to Tom Deal to walk through this slide and the next one. One of the things that came up in the fiscal committee was the idea of publishing and looking at the forecast of the 22 revenue, because we're coming to the end of our where we're generating a lot of the profit through the end of the pool and a tennis season. So we have started to provide that information to look at 22 actuals against 23 budget. And we think we have a pretty accurate forecast. So as we get into that, I'm sure whether it's Dave Kerr or some of the other committee members, may speak to that, and some of the board members that have been active in this conversation. So I'm going to hand it to Tom to walk through these 2 slides, and then we'll jump back to some of the highlights of the budget.
Thank you, Mac. Budget process itself. Step 1, we calculate the operating expenses. That means each budget manager of a cost center submits expenses that they expect to provide services to the members. Step 2, we calculate the non-assessment operating revenues. That means each department submits what they expect to generate as far as revenues from the membership assets. Step 3, we estimate the capital expenses based on the reserve study and the staff's proposed capital projects list. Key points on that: a reserve study must be conducted at least every 5 years to determine the necessity and amounts of capital reserves required to repair, replace, and restore the capital assets. So starting in 2014, the RRF is funded by 1/10 of the forecasted 10-year expenditures based on the latest forecast prepared by staff. Step 4, we determine the minimum transfer amount to the repair, replacement, and reserve fund per the assessment in the Finance Resolution 3. Step 5, using those above figures, we calculate the needed assessment revenues to balance the budget. And obviously what Mac was talking about on step 6, there's also cash considerations and fund balance from the RRF and the CARF if the board so desires. We can go to the next slide. Basically, this is just a diagram of what I've went over. So the revenues, funds, and expenses, the flow chart, the assessment revenues plus the non-assessment revenues equals the annual revenues, and that gets dispersed three ways: to the RRF, which is for the repair and replacement of existing capitals, and that's underlined because that's critical to understanding what RRF is. And then also the money gets put into an operating fund, and that pays the operating expenses. And last, the CAR funding. This is for the acquisition of new capital assets. And again, new is underscored because of it's only for assets that are brand new to the association.
Why don't we go ahead and jump to the next slide? I want to try to hit a little bit about the process, particularly for anyone that wants to continue to follow this through. It's our intent at this point and all the way through this process to try to make it as efficient as possible. I am certainly learning a lot, you know, as in my first 30 days about all of this. We thought it would be worthwhile to put the key milestones when things have come to a work session, how we receive member comment. And of course, obviously, as we go through any year, when we do surveys and things, we are building that anecdotal feedback and data points into things that we give to the board or work on. But these are the key dates: July and August, in terms of how we received feedback from the board and or fiscal committee. And then we had the fiscal committee last week. And then, of course, we are here tonight. So why don't we hop on to the next one? And this is where we're going to start getting into some of the operating budget line items that are proposed to be added and included into the draft budget that you have in front of you. There's a couple things, and I'm not going to go through every line item in the interest of time, but I'm going to try to give you the highlights of that. I'm going to break them down into personnel related and then some other related things for operating. And then we'll talk about the capital separately. Some of you are going to notice that there is one item that was in the board priorities, that one particular item that was not specifically addressed in this draft one budget, that relates to the extension of the aquatics facilities, both on the front end of the season, opening earlier, and on the latter end of the season. And we are actively working on that now, and we will have good proposals and scenarios for the fiscal committee meeting that is coming up, including being able to weave in our annual member feedback survey at the end of the season, which has proven very useful. So trying to tie together some data points for fiscal to also be able to bring to the board. In terms of personnel related operations things, there are a couple of new staff positions that are in the draft budget. We're looking for some feedback from you all on those things. They are specifically meant and proposed through the lens of what is the value add, both for our senior level managers and for the members. And those two become really the same thing if our managers get extra support within the two departments, so that we can help provide that service, you know, and particularly spend more time on strategic planning sorts of things. The other things you see in this category generally relate to increases in labor costs overall and proposed merit increase. The only comment I want to make about those things is it can be misunderstood to just show a 5% merit increase. This is not a COLA concept. It's not a 5% across the board increase. These are merit-based raises for outstanding performance. We also know that because of historical attrition, and believe me, I would love to keep everybody in jobs and be a great employer of choice, but we do know we will change over some positions. So it's not a true 5% hit to simply the budgetary number. So that's where you see you know, some subtractions coming in. And so that the net increase, you know, is actually only a couple of percent. Why don't we jump onto the next slide? The IT related impacts, these are things I think everybody on the board is familiar with. We do anticipate some additional credit card use. Obviously, a significant value discussion you're all going to have is whether or not you'd like to pass that cost on to the user, which is something that's come up many times in the in the finance committee, versus, just an increase, here. The third-party review of IT processes, of course, I hit that. That's something that came out of the IT committee. I'm personally looking forward to that. I think there's a lot of ways we could look at how that could be woven into some other ideas I have for organizational assessments. I have not yet had a chance to meet with the IT committee on that topic. I've only got a general description from a few of the members, but so that you'll see that. And I should have mentioned, by the way, the assessment impact, that's the, per household impact in a monetary way. So $35,000 equals, $1.64 to the impact, for example, on that one. The others, I will just mention, they're generally facility related. These are things I think you would all be familiar with. You're obviously later going to talk about the community survey and whether to advance that into 2022, or keep it going to 2023. From my perspective, I'm super excited about that. Can't wait to get going. So looking forward to your conversation later on that topic. And then the last area, and this is one that I will want to track very closely and work with you all on, the relationship between member fees, non-member fees, how they're broken out, and how you're all thinking about, how we work with and treat and think about those two subsets. You'll notice that we had an increase in the non-member assessments to start with as a proposal for you all to chew on, and very minimal impact increase to member fees. But want to understand from you all a little bit better about the calibration of that and what your thoughts are coming out of this discussion. So as we talk with fiscal, if there's further refinement, we can do that. So hop to the next one. The main point that I wanted to hit here are the drivers. I don't think it's going to surprise anybody that we're pointing out a key variable in your considerations that we are now hitting inflation in a way that we have not seen in quite a long time. That inflation obviously does affect, it's more expensive to do the same thing. So we are accounting for that. The other things that I think would be important for you all to keep in mind and think about, it's a very strong local job market. And I know many of you are very familiar with that because you've mentioned it to me already in my first month here. If we believe and think about human capital as being the most important asset of a service-based organization, the ability to retain employees and recruit good employees becomes a really important concept. And from a budgetary standpoint, working with our employees and keeping them in jobs is a really important thing compared to the cost of recruiting new employees and starting over in the training expenses that go with those kinds of things. So I am looking at that internally, and it certainly is a driver as you consider the personnel kinds of things that come up. And obviously personnel is a significant component of our base budget. So if we jump to the next one, and we're about to wrap up here, and I want to get to the key parts of this, which is your discussion. The capital budget, as was mentioned earlier, our capital budget is based on the reserve study and the 10-year average, which becomes what you put into your budget on any one year. I have gotten some questions, and I think it would be good to mention here about the website update, which is a significant project that has been funded for many years and will still be done. Because that is listed as a project in the RRF, it may appear to the average watcher that it's not funded in a draft budget. We don't believe that to be true, but because of how we publish and show projects in the RRF, I think it would be important to talk to you all that we plan that that's a project we're going to do and are looking for affirmation from you all as we list off the priority projects for 23. The notable projects are listed here. I think everybody's familiar with those. So I won't spend a ton of time on them, but happy to answer questions as we get into the Q&A. So hop to the next slide. The next reserve study is not due till 2024. So as I mentioned before, we're showing some new CARF projects. you should have all received the draft 23 to 27 capital projects that are all summarized, as well as a draft CIP plan over a 5-year time horizon. And then lastly, excuse me, the 10-year average. And of course, that's important because it will help you be able to make fiscal decisions that can impact the overall assessment increase in any one year. So lastly, if we go ahead and flip to the, the next slide, we'll be talking about different alternatives. So as the board looks at the different line items and assesses what you would like to enter into the 23 budget, there really are a couple of ways you can go. You can raise the assessments, and we can certainly talk to you about if you did some things, if you did everything, what the total increase to the assessment would look like. You can, we're in a very, very strong cash position. This organization has been really well run in terms of not taking on too much debt and making sure that you run cash positive in a very good way. So that's a good thing. We will, we'll be talking about long-term CIPs and strategic plans, over the next 18 months. But for right now, there's no question we have cash if you want to use that to offset some of the expenditure increases. And obviously, there's a scenario for a combination of the above. And so I'm looking for some help from you all and some guidance as you consensus build about how you want to go about that. So the next steps in the process will be tonight's feedback session. Let's go to the next slide. And then, moving back to the fiscal committee, my hope is that staff gets as clear direction as we can tonight so that we can move through the October timeframe and be able to feel very confident that we can bring a very efficient, thought out budget in November that you're all comfortable with, that you have given direction to us on through tonight's meeting, the October sessions, and then into November. So I'm going to stop there. We are really excited about this. This is a chance for you all to operationalize and implement your policy directions. So as I get into this, I may have some questions for you about, where this is aligning with your value judgments on the different kinds of things so that I can prepare the necessary scenarios or other fiscal impact analysis that you may ask for. So I'll stop and we'll go from there, Madam President.
Thank you, Max. Well, Dave, do you want to give us your comments now before the board goes into discussion? If you can give us fiscals recommendations, that'd be great.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I'm prepared to make recommendations per se. What we're trying to do certainly is work with staff and then talk amongst ourselves about, where we see opportunity or might, and just we want to have a discussion as opposed to saying, here's what you should do. Okay, two very different things. But I do want to make a couple points that I think are really important here. The forecast was mentioned. We're working off the last few years of not the greatest years for people participating in all of our activities and other things. And finance people like to have ways to compare. They like to look at trends. They do these kinds of things. And of course, we don't have, going back to 2019 is no longer relevant anymore. It's too long ago. So a forecast for 22 is very helpful from our point of view when seeing kind of where are we going to end up and then what's kind of our stepping stone into the next year. So that's very helpful to us. And we got one in September. We'll have a refreshed one in October, and that'll be very helpful to us. One of the things we tend to do is we tend to challenge staff a bit on non-assessment revenue. Just kind of one of the things we do is, hey, have you looked at this? Because, the tendency is going to be, let's be conservative on revenue. No one wants to go out there. In fact, believe me, finance people don't want to go out there and say, shoot for the moon on all your revenue numbers. Okay, that's not a good strategy. But we poke at that a little bit. We've done some of that, and I think we've worked well on coming to a consensus there. one of the big items, biggest items right now, of course, is capital. And we've got to be careful when we talk about capital now, because CARF is something different. And what I mean by that is we have not experienced CARF the way we are now ever in RA. Okay. In the past, CARF has been, go out and buy a mower or, some type of, a single asset type of purchase. Okay. We are now seeing large projects, $500,000 and multiple projects coming up all at once. And RA has no resolution on how to fund CARF. It basically says, come up with the money. Okay. Triple RF is a very formal process of how to do it. Okay. CARF does not. And that is hurting us because projects like this, so large in 1 year, tend to skew the assessment, because they might, you can cover it, raise the assessment, but then a year later, 2 years later, it drops again. Okay. The reason for having a triple RF formula is to not create that burden on assessment rates. So I think we need to look at CARF and see what we can do from a, I don't want to say resolution point of view, but from a strategy of how we fund it. Okay. To number one, make sure we fund it, obviously number one, but number two, how do we fund it in a way that is assessment friendly? And one of the things that helps there is the comments that Mac has made on reserves and our financial strength. Reston has never been in this good of a cash position. Okay. And of course, when you spend a couple of years where, you don't really do a lot of new things, you kind of lay low, that can happen. And it has happened. Okay. So we've got opportunities there to maybe give us some flexibility in handling some of these big items, if we can figure out a way to kind of smooth them out a little bit and maybe not affect the assessment rate as much on a 1 year basis as it might look. So those are some of the things that we're talking about. We're obviously in our meetings, when there's an opportunity to discuss something specifically, we will create a little work team. We'll get 2 or 3 of us together. We'll get together with Tom and people on his team, and maybe we'll negotiate, or not negotiate, that's the wrong word, but we'll talk about stuff and there's not necessarily wait a month for another meeting. Okay. So we can make things kind of happen. So, we've made some suggestions. One of the things that we'd love to see happen is to pull, if we can, the facility survey that's being requested for next year. If there's some way to pull that into this year, 2 big benefits. One, we can afford it this year. Number 2, a lot of people are waiting to see what that survey is going to look like. Okay. We don't want to wait till next year. Okay. So that would be a good item to help us maybe relax a little bit of next year, but also get that survey started and going and give some good feedback. There is one concern about kind of, for lack of a better term, I'll use pool strategy. A few years ago, there were a lot of concerns raised about members using our pools. Okay. And the fact that a lot of that usage has been falling. And it kind of looks like it still is, but how do you tell with the last 2 years, whether that's real or artificial, so to speak? So very hard, but if it hasn't changed, we have to kind of resurrect that at least issue and make sure we're talking about pools in general, because as we've said in the past many times, pools are not only the most capital intensive amenity we have, that it is the highest operating cost of any amenity we have. Because no matter how many people show up at a pool, it's got to be fully staffed, fully functional, fully everything, whether there's 1 person or 150 people. So very expensive to run. So those are the kinds of things that we've been talking about. And again, we're going to work very closely with Tom and his team and make sure that we get to the best budget we can by November.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. So we can go one of two ways. We are running late, but I can go around the table with directors if you've got questions on Mac's presentation. We can ask those. And then at the end of it, I think I'd like to ask Mac what questions he has for us. What direction is staff waiting from the board to give them so they can go back? And, you know, we asked this question the last time, does the CEO have everything they need to work on draft 1? Now the question is, does he have everything he needs to work on draft 2? So we can start going around the table with the directors. If you've got any questions, I'm gonna pick on those who talk a lot. So we'll start with Mike Collins. Do you have any questions? No questions. Okay. Anybody else who's got questions, if you want to put up your hand. If not, I can go just the order on my screen. Margaret, any questions, any thoughts? Lori, any questions? Yes, Margaret, you had a question? Lori, any questions, any thoughts? I have John Farrell next. Any questions, any thoughts?
I do have several questions regarding capital projects, and I don't know if now's the time to raise them or not. One of the questions I have relates to the next year's budget, in that when I look at the capital budget for the next couple of years, Hook Road is not going to be paid for next year at all. And what I don't understand is, it looks like, I don't know when, in looking at the capital budget proposal that I saw, when are we moving the backstops? And in particular, I'm concerned, if I just might, in particular, I'm concerned about the backstop at Hook Road and Fairview Drive because it's a safety issue. My understanding is fixing that disturbs less than 2,500 square feet. And, you know, there's 7 and 8 year olds at that intersection. And it's a dangerous situation to leave not fixed for 3 or 4 years. And I think we can get that done either in this budget year or next budget year, because it's less than 2,500 square feet. So from a point of view of budgeting, I hope we could look at accelerating that fix, because you got 7 or 8 year olds going out, literally they've got like 3 feet going out into a public right of way. It's almost impossible to try and supervise them.
Sure. Can we discuss that when we go to the third quarter capital projects update with Chris?
If you'd like. I'm just asking when's the right time?
Okay. Larry, you want to answer that? Go for it.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, so we're waiting to get the site plan approved, John. And with the improvements to the dugouts and so forth, it is over 2,500 square feet. We have the funding for it right now. So as soon as we get the site plan approved, we can put it out to bid and get it done. So I anticipate that being done by next year.
Perfect.
Well,
thank you, Larry. Yes, John.
No, on the capital budget, it doesn't show it being done next year. That's why I'm asking the question.
Because it's funded this year.
This year, it's in 2022. The monies are already set aside in 2022. You don't seem sold on it. Well, Larry, if you can share that information with John, that'd be great.
Sure.
No, I'm looking at the handout that has when are we spending what money, and the next year we're not spending any money. That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay. Well, John, I'll get the answer. You know, Chris is overseas right now, so we will. But certainly before the October fiscal, we'll have all these answers for you.
Thank you, Larry. Margaret, is your mute working or not working still? Not I did it.
It's good. Yeah. No, I got it. It's good. I'm actually going to speak later. So thank you.
Perfect. Okay, we have Director Small. Glenn, are you here? Do you have any comments on the budget? Any questions?
Nope. No comments. No questions.
Thank you, Glenn. Erwin, questions, comments?
None at this time. Thank you.
Bob and Jennifer, whoever wants to go first. Bob, go for it. Okay, go for it, Bob.
Okay.
first of all, I think that Mac has set the right course and the right tone for the budget. I appreciate that immensely. That being said, I'm hesitant to add staff in positions that could or might be automated away in a year or two. Now, I'm not suggesting that additional staff couldn't be used, but a registrar position when we're going to, based on the discussion that we've had with at least one of the consulting firms to automate many of these processes, seems redundant to me. That's number one. Two, I think it's for the membership's benefit, the second step in the aquatics pay increase. This is largely to meet competition. In fact, if we don't at least meet, if not exceed slightly our competition, we're not going to get the lifeguards that we need to run the pools. In terms of merit increase, I agree with Mac in terms of what the ultimate cost increase is, but it's still a 5% increase to each of the individuals. Could be up to a 5% increase for those people that it applies to, that are eligible for it. So that's on that one slide. The other two comments that I have are, number one, I thought the IT review was in this year's budget, the $35,000. We certainly have the room and the cash right now to do it. And it also follows one of Mac's key I'm sorry, I'm just lost my train of thought here, but one of the key items that Mac is working on for this for these coming years is looking at technology and processes, and that would be a $35,000 well spent. And lastly, the member survey. I am foursquare in terms of making fact-based decisions, and if we don't have facts, we're making decisions on anecdotes, and we need to do that as we move forward, particularly given the amount of money we're going to spend on capital projects. And I'm done for now.
Thank you, Bob. I just want to share with everyone, Director Perry does have, she wants to talk a little bit about the survey when we go into the board member updates, and we will talk about and absolutely look at the board taking action on that issue tonight. Jennifer.
Like Bob, I would like to hold on the new positions, and Mac, if in 6 months I feel like you might have your feet under you more, then be happy to take an off-cycle budget request on those types of things. On the merit pool, I just want to make sure the calculation in the budget is based on those staff members that will be eligible for increases, not just based on the entire amount that's sitting in that wages line, which I'm assuming you guys have some type of methodology for who's eligible. So an open position or I don't know, someone that's hired in November, wouldn't be eligible, those types of things. Wanted to ask Larry, benefit cost increases. I see you're estimating 5%. When do we expect to get, isn't that in October? So we might have a better idea next month as to what those really are.
Correct. Yeah, our benefits broker, we typically get those at the very end of September or early October. So we are hoping, and Sam Kendrick is on this call, and she can verify.
Oh, I didn't know Sam was here. Sorry, Sam. I could have asked you the merit increase one.
Yeah, we anticipate having those numbers to be able to plug in for draft 2.
Perfect. Okay. And I don't know if you're looking at any different benefit. I do have some thoughts on, some individual benefit changes I'd like to see based on going through the process of hiring Mac and understanding staff benefits a little bit more. So I'd be happy to give those comments offline.
Just
I'd
to
love
remind,
to.
can you copy the board on it so all of us are in the loop on those comments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Credit card fees and yes, on credit card fees, I'd really like to see fiscal give us a recommendation at the next meeting. Like, I'd like the board not to get involved in that.
Dave, do you want to speak on that? I know you have a recommendation on that. Go for it, Dave. I know it was discussed at fiscal.
We discussed this at our last meeting. And while I guess it's possible to implement physically, we don't believe that, being September, whatever it is these days, that we can truly implement and communicate, which is even the more important item, all of this before the end of November, because you've got bills going out in December. So we are in a very tight time crunch to do this perfectly. And if we're going to do it, it needs to be done perfectly. So yeah, maybe it can be done. Fiscal believes that, one solution is if the board wants to do this, okay, is they could put the funds aside, meaning hold them out of the assessment fee, use cash out of the assessment fee for 23 in anticipation of having it implemented in 24, okay, and therefore not affecting the assessment rate in 23, but it won't be actually implemented another year. Give us time to do it right and communicate it well.
And Tom, did you have anything to add on this? I know you were going to look into some of these questions.
Yeah, we put out feelers with various third-party entities that could take the assessment for us, that would offset, or if you clicked on paying by credit card, it would go over to this third party, and so that we could implement that fee that Dave's talking about. And I'm still waiting to get costs back from those third-party vendors.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Jennifer.
This is multiple years we've been talking about this, so I'd like to make sure that it's moving forward. So a final recommendation from fiscal and staff before we get to the end of the budget process, so we know what to budget, but I don't want to talk about it another year without moving to a solution.
I have a list of board direction, and I think I have that on one of that. We as a board can actually direct staff to go explore it and get the information needed and implement it in 2024.
That would be wonderful. And then I believe we had a subsection of the board go over looking at non-member fees. Wasn't that the subcommittee that we made? So do you guys have any report or think you might have some guidance for us next month? Or
I think staff is still looking at it. Overall, what we came out with is we're not making any changes to the members, except we're removing the discounts overall. Laura, feel free to jump in and correct me. I know you were leading that meeting.
Okay.
The second piece, Laura, I'll actually let you fill us in. Go for it, Laura.
Okay, so the recreation pass types were taken a look at for both member and non-member passes with members of the board and fiscal and staff. For members, the 2022 fees would stay the same. The removal of a 20% discount for purchases made by March 1st. There is an initial and a new pass. So there's a small percentage of people that may see a change of $2 there. And I can provide additional information there later, but essentially there's no change and removal of discount. Non-member passes were all increased. You all received a fee schedule in August, and it was determined at that meeting to increase on top of those fees, to add an additional 10% and remove all discounts. So that is reflected in the current draft 1 budget.
Was there any discussion about the non-member pickleball only pass?
That is
category?
included, yes, that's included in that category. So those fees were also increased and discounts removed.
And Laura, do you want to touch on a little bit about removing the pickleball only option and going to either a non-member adult pass or a non-member tennis and racket pass? So the pickleball will kind of fall into one of those.
So we, so that was mentioned as a potential option to remove all different pass types, and just have a pools, tennis, and pickleball rolled into one without the suite of options to choose from. What we hear from the non-residents is that they do prefer to have a suite of options. And it's important to note that members, their pass is all inclusive. It's pools, tennis, and pickleball. But for those non-members, there are those 3 different options. Did I touch on what you needed me to, Sarah? I apologize if I didn't.
Sure. And the part, I think the question from staff to the board is, and we'll probably discuss this in depth when Mac comes back with the draft 2 with fiscal. If we went with that scenario, there is a potential loss. And are we willing to take that risk? Just in the event that we change it and everyone who has a pickleball pass or a tennis pass decides not to renew. Are we as a board comfortable taking that risk? And I think we'll have those numbers probably closer to with the draft 2. I know Laura and her team are also looking at the subscription model we've talked about before. I don't know, Larry, if you can touch on this. The other passes we were looking at, Ben is looking at the boat fees. So we'll probably get an updated fee schedule and a total. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, he's looking at going to either a single fee, but the board has some thoughts on that. We're happy to accept them. Right now we've got a tiered fee based on the size, and we did do a little benchmarking, Lake Barcroft, for instance. So our fees are not terribly out of line, frankly, and that's one of the only other places that has mooring fees around here. So.
Right. But we talked about that. The Lake Barcroft has a $350 just flat fee for everyone that pays on the lake, separate from the boats as well. So we will get some recommendations from staff. We've heard from both, I'm sure, folks who live on the lakes and others, that our fees for boats could go up. I don't know how high, but could go up, and we'll get those numbers from staff, I think. Does that answer a lot of your questions?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Buck wants to consider next meeting for us to have a separate line on the agenda for fees, because I think there's a lot in it, and maybe what the recommendations are, so that we could direct staff easier what to include in the budget. That would be really helpful.
Larry and Laura, do you think you'll have that for us, an updated fee schedule to put in our October meeting and discuss it?
We can have that.
It has to go to fiscal before it comes to us. So just FYI.
Laura, you have a lot of those fees. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
I personally, going on to my next one, would be comfortable reducing the triple RF contribution in 2023 below what the recommendation is of 3.4 billion. And I am in support of moving the PRAC survey up to 2022. In fact, I'd be happy to motion
Margaret has that as a
evening.
motion. I think I would save it for Margaret.
Wonderful.
Do it.
Awesome. And then I'd like to see the overall assessments come in at slightly less than 5%. If you're taking comments on that.
Okay.
Those are mine. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments or thoughts that you would like to share? And then I can go into my questions. I guess not. So in the past, we've had, individual directors giving direction, and then the staff making changes and then coming back to us, and then the others not, being totally sold on it. So I have a few items that I was just noting from the director's conversations and then mine. And if we can give direction to staff, even if it's like a straw poll, it doesn't have to be an official vote. How do we feel? Where do we want staff to land? I think the big one we had 2 directors touch on is the staffing, the 2 full-time positions, and Mac and Larry can correct me if I'm wrong. Those are already included in draft 1, correct?
Correct.
So does the board want to give, here are 3 options: direction for staff to remove it from draft 1, direction to staff to cut it in half, or direction to staff to keep it. If we can, I can go with the first one. Do we want staff to remove it, both 1 and 2? And we've heard that from Bob and Jennifer. The others, if you want to weigh in, yes or no. Lori, you want to share thoughts? Keep it, take it out, find a middle ground?
I would support a middle ground. I support, Bob's comments about a lot of the registrar responsibilities being automated in the future is one that I think we need to pay attention to, and I'm hopeful that that would not require 2 full-time positions.
Okay. Erwin, any thoughts?
I would be inclined to remove the 2 and then see just the true justification for those positions at the midterm and long term.
Okay, Margaret?
Since this is draft 1, I'm inclined to leave it in. It can always be removed at a later time.
Okay. John?
Sorry, I agree with Margaret.
Leave it in?
Yes.
Okay. Glenn?
Leave it in.
You're all making this so easy for me, right? Who are we missing? Mike? Oh, I don't see you on my screen, so I missed you. Mike?
I'm here. I'd leave it in.
Okay. So I think the majority we're hearing is leave it in, or at least keep half of it in some level. Don't know if that helps you guys. With the second one that I had was the capital projects.
Sarah, Bob wanted to say something.
Oh, sorry.
I think
Go.
in for a penny, in for a pound. If you're going to leave them in, leave both in.
Leave both in. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think the next one we had was capital projects was a big topic. Any thoughts, any comments on those? Me personally, I take Dave Kerr's comments seriously, where he said, how do we fund it in a way that it's assessment friendly? So if we could send that back to fiscal to Dave, you asked for the work, so don't blame the messenger. If you could look at and give us recommendations on what is a good way to look at it. Yes, go ahead, Dave.
Just very quickly. One question was the funds for next year are primarily Hunter Woods, okay? And the question is, are those spent in 2023 completely? Because one of the things that we've got to realize that if we're going to do that over a 2-year period, let's say, okay, we should fund it over a 2-year period. We can approve the project and fund it over a 2-year period. Okay, and that would be more assessment friendly and still get the same thing accomplished. I don't know what it's going to take to do it. Maybe it gets done in 3 months. I have no idea what the level of complication is.
Larry, do you want to touch on that?
I can, yeah. So that project is not a very large project in terms of, it's nothing like Lake for a Pool in complexity. So it is something where we would, once we get a contractor in there, we want to go get it done. So I think your 3-month estimate is probably a pretty good one once a contractor will get started. So we see that actually all occurring in a single year. I would also add, in talking with Tom, one of the things we realized on that particular project is that the actual renovation of the ball field, which is an existing asset, I believe we can split the funding for that between Triple RF and CARF and reduce the actual CARF piece of it, because the new assets out there are the pathways and the sidewalk and the benches. The regrading the ball field and landscaping is essentially working on the existing asset. So we're going to come back to fiscal with, take a look at how that split might occur, which will automatically reduce the impact on the assessment.
And we agree that split, should occur and ought to occur, and maybe it could on Hook Road as well. Who knows?
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts on capital projects? I have a big one. I don't know if it's controversial, if I should bring it up. Barton Hill. Yes, Mike, you have thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, just because I think there are kind of two conversations going on capital. There are some conversations, and Dave Kerr mentioned this, about the changing nature of the capital projects, particularly new capital projects, and their just the sheer impact, the largeness of needing to redo facilities or think about the CARF in a different way than maybe the organization has in the past. So I think there's really two conversations that are happening right now. One is in looking at some of the immediate projects we've already identified, and what do we look at to add those in the short term and be assessment friendly, if that's a term we might start using here. And then there's a long-term strategy that I know you're all interested in taking on that relates to the future of, and we have a lot of facilities that over the next 10 to 20 years will be in need of no more Band-Aids, but significant capital improvement. So I think what we will do is make sure we're definitely going to be having the short-term conversation with fiscal, but I'm already starting to do some thinking. I want to talk to you, Sarah, and the whole board about what the long-term, just how to map out a process to talk about the long-term strategy going forward into the next year or so.
Yeah, I like that. Are we all good with that? Glenn, any thoughts? So you just turned your camera on. No thoughts. Okay. So things like, if you and staff could review with fiscal, if there are items that are sitting in this year's budget for capital that's not going to get spent, not going to get done, if we could kind of arrive at a recommendation for the board. If we want to keep it, are we moving it next year? Are we defunding it? I've thrown the big elephant in the room out there. I know it's a longer conversation. Are we doing it in 23? Are we doing it in 24? Are we doing, not doing? There's lots of questions there, but at least we know it's not getting done before December. And there's money allocated to it this year. So we would love to hear staff's recommendations on that. Okay. The other, very quickly, I just have two more items. I know the pools, we haven't gotten the number yet, but I just want to remind board members, when we in July did the Excel spreadsheets that I kind of forced all of you to do, where we had member suggestions and you said yes, no, or later, every single one of us said yes to extending the pool season. So we don't know the data or the number on that, but when staff comes back, you just don't want anyone to be shocked. Why are we looking at this? Because we, as a board, as a collective, every single one of us said we want that to happen. And then credit card fees is the last one. If you, Mac, Larry, or Tom, if you want us to make it as a motion, I'm happy to, as a board, direct staff. If you're comfortable just doing it, again, rest of the board, how do we feel? Are we comfortable just giving staff direction, or do we want to actually formalize it? Bob, any thoughts? Jennifer? Yes, Bob?
This is an issue which Dave has already mentioned has been discussed for years. Yeah, I completely agree with Dave that it ought to be carefully studied, because implementing this is a good deal more complicated than just flipping a switch. And I completely agree that whether it's a formal recommendation or not, that you take the time to do it right, because this will hurt us much more if we do it poorly than if we didn't do it at all.
Got it.
Madam Chairman, do you want a motion to direct the staff to implement a change in the credit card fees for the year beginning in the year 2024?
Sure. Is there a second? Thank you. Larry, you had your hand up. Go for it, Larry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, the takeaway we had from the fiscal committee meeting, which is what Tom's already starting to dig into, is to look at, what would it cost for the implementation for the third-party vendor, to set it up and do it right. Again, as we've discussed then, there are a lot of intricate rules behind it that we've got to make sure that we are following to the T. And so we're already doing that. Having a motion is fine, but I just want to let you know that that's already underway.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry. Yes, Jennifer?
I just want to make sure that Michael Lockett's team is involved in that analysis.
Do you want to amend the motion to include that piece?
No, just from a staff perspective, want to
Okay, perfect.
ask them to do that.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Mike, perfect. This is unanimous. Thank you so much. So Mike and Larry, you've got your work cut out for you. We did have a couple of things, but we're going to go into the rest of my agenda and then we'll touch those when we come to the board member project updates, because I know Glenn and Erwin and Margaret all have updates, great updates for us. So, okay, thank you, Mac and Larry. This was wonderful to see the presentation this way. I'm not a fan of PowerPoint presentations, but this was great to set the stage. Thank you. All righty, I know we watched the video for the third quarter capital updates. So any questions on that, directors? Yes, John, here's yours.
Thank you. There are two questions I had in addition to the one about Hook Road. I recall Chris in some of his writing somewhere about Ridge Heights indicated that there's an electrical issue regarding the heating of Ridge Heights pool, which suggests that there's going to be need for attention to Ridge Heights pool before it's projected for 2026. And I need to understand that better. Some of it is efficiency of operation. Some of it, I think, is just continuing to be able to heat the pool. And it seems to me that if there's a serious problem at that pool with continuing it to be heated, then we probably need to move that examination up or move that capital project earlier in the cycle, the 5-year cycle. Contrary-wise, most of us on the board went to Golf Course Island. I don't see that Golf Course Island needs immediate attention. Could we embellish it? Could we make it nicer? Could we use the property some other way? But in light of the challenges we're facing, I don't see a need to renovate Golf Course Island before the year 2028. And I'm comfortable having a motion to direct staff to do that, but I'm looking for somebody to give me some direction as to how to communicate that perspective to staff, because I really don't think we need to be messing with Golf Course Island anytime soon. And we got a lot of other stuff that really does need our attention much more quickly.
And Margaret, has this come up at PrAC at all? Have you had any conversations at PrAC on this matter? Ideally, like fiscal, we'd like this to go to PrAC and you come back from PrAC with answers and suggestions. So any thoughts?
So the conversations have to some extent been to make sure that we're using a set policy of how we're looking at things, what is not only what the members want, what the board wants, but also, does it meet X, Y, and Z based on what we think makes a good facility. So I don't think it's specifically been touched on for that particular one in this particular way at this point, because a lot of what PrAC is waiting for is the direction from that survey.
Larry, you wanted to add something?
All I was going to say is in response to your comments, John, I think this is appropriate. We'll get with, and I know Austin, who's working with Chris, is on the call here as well. I think we can get full responses to you. I'd prefer to have Chris come back and be available for that.
Sure.
And Larry, can you please make sure that the responses go to PrAC and we get their thoughts as well before, and it comes to the entire board, please? So
Sure.
All the board members are included in that conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll be happy to bring it up at PrAC as a member of PrAC.
I think Margaret would, as liaison, bring that up as well. Thank you so much. It's good to have two directors
Involved.
Yes. Any other thoughts on capital? Any questions? If not, we're ready to move to Michael Lockett, who's been patient. Yes, Jennifer, go for it.
I just wanted to let everyone know I've been getting a lot of comments from, the Lake Throw Loop is one that a lot of members walk. I've been getting a lot of comments of, why are those machines just sitting over there and no one is ever there doing anything? Aren't we under construction? Or are we really under construction? Are we just doing prep work? So I don't know if there's some education that we can do of what the schedule is for that project. But I think people are noticing that there's many days in which there's nothing going on over there.
Larry, doesn't Chris have the email list or the update that he sends out? Maybe
he does, and we
something?
also send it through the to the Upper Lakes group as well. I know Mike Leone has done that. So Austin, I think you're on. I don't know if you have some more current information you want to share. This is Austin Mayhew, a new addition to the capital project team.
So I think they are on grading work right now. So those machines are picking up the dirt on the backside and grading it, getting it ready for the caissons that will be installed. I think in our update that Chris made, we are 7 days behind due to weather right now, but it's moving forward.
And the video with the machines going was cool. Thank you for that in the video. Jennifer, do you want?
I think maybe because we didn't do a, groundbreaking, we've talked about doing that. Maybe it's time for a Lake Throw update to the membership on what the schedule looks like or what the phases are or something to that effect. I think might be helpful.
Okay.
Sure. We'll let you navigate that, Larry.
Yes.
Thank you. Michael Lockett, you're up. You're one of the few that did not have a video. So if you want to, give us a quick update, we are behind. So no pressure.
Absolutely. So I'll do it quickly. And thank you for the time. And I am going to share my screen. So just let me get that document up for everyone. Just give me just a second here.
Michael, I've got it up if you want me to just advance the slides for you.
I'd appreciate it greatly. That's even better. All right. With that, this is the third quarter update for IT. And if you'll move to the next slide, please.
Mike, we're not seeing it on our screen.
Coming up.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect.
All right. And let me just get my visuals here so that I can follow along as well. All right, so the work stream focuses for 2022, 2023 continue. We moved a couple of the segments into a proactive status with the M365 deployment and the managed services provider and a perspective on IT. The recurring conversation still continues to be constituent facing services, which is in a reactive state, which we have a number of eyes from the IT committee, the IT team itself, and the overall organization really focusing on how to improve constituent facing services. Part of that conversation is member services suite, the refresh of the website, which is a conversation that's in flight, IT governance and benchmarking, and cybersecurity. We had a presentation to the IT committee back in August, specifically around cybersecurity. There was an additional request to scale down the review and modify the requirements for cybersecurity. So we've taken that back to the vendor, and we've gotten some items to bring back forth to the IT committee for review. That is those are the 6 chevrons of focus specifically around the IT support. And the idea is to move more and more of these items and these chevrons from the reactive into the proactive status. So we're continuing to work in constituent facing services, IT governance, benchmarking, and cybersecurity. And Mike, if you'll take me to the next slide. So in the third quarter, constituent facing services, again, the website refresh project was reactivated. We've completed a demo completed analysis and demo that was brought forward to the board and also to the IT committee. That item will have additional considerations and review. The approval by the IT committee on approach to migrate the telephone system that is end of life in 2023 was approved back in August. We're bringing forth the next steps to the board for the selection of the vendor, and then the move forward of the consideration of moving the current phone system off premise to the cloud with a cost savings mechanism built into that service delivery. The M365, our Microsoft licensing and agreement with our third-party vendor, Red River, completed a renewal. That renewal put us in a place where we were able to go through and perform a usage audit and control and cost control mechanism. We also created an internal continuous learning suite for the staff. One of the things that we're going to work with the IT committee and the internal senior leadership team is provide some Microsoft training internal to the staff, just to upskill all of our internal staff members. The managed services provider, we completed a quarterly executive business review and solutioning review to develop a continued roadmap for technology improvement through that managed service provider agreement. We refined those services and optimized the roadmap for 2022-2023, and we completed an update and renewal of the Meraki environment that added some additional security mechanisms into our environment. And Mike, if you'll take us to the next slide. Continued focus around IT governance and benchmarking. Again, regular sessions working with the IT committee itself. We meet monthly and address a number of topics. There's a continued process for the development of the updated IT acceptance technology and use policy. The charter for the improvement committee that's internal with the senior leadership team, and the update of a project portfolio and roadmap that is kept in a within roadmap month for the organization. Cybersecurity, again, presented advanced cybersecurity analysis and enhanced security governance with the goal of aligning with NIST is our cybersecurity framework, working with the IT committee. We've shifted that into a next steps where we've defined a vendor and an approach to add audit, review, and assessment specifically around cybersecurity for Reston Association. Again, we've continued to work with the IT committee and continued the IT policy alignment with the IT committee with meetings in June, July, August, and September with the focus on member-facing services and security, and support the IT committee with a membership and discovery requirements specifically around the membership program. Mike, if you'll continue to the next slide, it's just a recap. And with that, Reston Associations continues to make strides in improving its cybersecurity posture and its support with the items highlighted in this update and the core workstream focus for 2022. The goals are to continue the improvement of technology, governance, and organizational integration to improve member experience, increase staff efficiency, and enhance cybersecurity. First quarter of 2023 will include several changes that will shift the environment and technical space delivery forward into a proactive state. And with that, Sarah, that is the IT update for third quarter.
Thank you so much, Michael. I know this was not in our package. Jennifer, go ahead.
Michael, I just want to ask you, talked about the cybersecurity that you presented a potential solution. And then on your last slide, you talk about, first quarter will include a bunch of changes. Are all of those reflected in the draft budget? Have you provided staff ideas for the draft budget? Can we see more of a detailed IT budget for 2023?
Correct. There was a budget that was formalized that included a CIP recommendation for the costs associated for the cloud migration. There was also a dollar amount included for the additional security requirements for MDR, XDR, and also a monitoring segment that was reevaluated through the IT committee.
Okay, because I see the one, Larry, on our list that had a budget, and that was a recommendation from the IT committee, but I'm not seeing anything from Michael's perspective. So if we could get his.
And Michael, in the future, if you
Include
could
it.
do this as a video and make sure we have it in our board packet so we can send the questions ahead of time.
Right, yeah, that would be great.
Have like an educated conversation on it. That'd be great. Glenn, any thoughts?
No.
No, okay, we all good?
I have
Go.
one more, and it's just a request moving forward. I'd love if we can't take a look at our email security rules that we put in place.
So staff, I know Mac and team are looking at it. We've had lots of directors with issues, and I know we're trying to schedule a time with our IT staff for all of us as a collective where they can give us
That would be much appreciated.
It is on the list. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
If
you.
no other questions, we'll move on. So very quickly, the other items, we've all had videos that we've watched. If there are questions, directors were asked to send them ahead of time. Unless there's something really pressing, I would like to, in the interest of time, move down. If there's anything that we have I, J, K, and L, which is IT we just talked about, cluster, we have Cam here if we have any questions. Erwin's secretary update and Bob's treasurer update. Anybody have any questions on those items? Yes, Bob.
I want to apologize. I looked at my treasurer's report, which was magnificent. It was nice and brief, but I didn't look any further. There are no financial statements behind it. So I will make sure that they get posted as an addendum to this board package.
Thank you, Bob. We got to see enough numbers with the draft and the budget, and I think our heads were spinning. So we did not miss it, but we would love to have it. Thank you. Yes, Erwin?
I'd like to also make an apology on the secretary's report as was published in the packet. There seem to have been several iterations of the document in different forms and at different stages. The one which really counts is the one that has the numbers 1 through 26 and is legible without having to magnify it with a magnifying glass. And I also want to apologize for having left out 3 items that were included in the July 28th minutes, 2 of which were in the consent calendar, and 1 of which was in item, I think, F.
Thank you, Erwin.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you so much. Perfect. Okay, again, that said, trying to keep this moving. We've all seen Larry's land use update. Any specific questions? If not, again, I would like to jump on that. Larry, you have no questions about your report?
It's not a question. I just want to give a very quick update.
Go for it. Go for it.
The request for the deferral, what was submitted to the BZA. Kathy Belgian, one of the senior county planning staff, said it will be taken up on the 28th, which was the date of the original, decision only piece. The county will be there to support it. I have asked our counsel if I or he need to be there, and he will let me know. But with the county staff supporting it, it should be a go.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Is there a new date? Or will there be a new date?
Well, we're getting a deferral, so we do not have a new date at this point. We have to.
We'll get a new date on the 28th.
We'll get a new date.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
One question I do have for the board is, as part of this update, I know we've talked about the golf courses a little bit. We have a resolution that supports our golf courses. If there is any interest as a board, we did this the first year that I got on the board, on Julie's board, and we reaffirmed our commitment to the golf courses. If there is any appetite on this board to do that, I'm happy to. And we put out a new video. We can do the same if we want to. I just want to throw that question out there. If that is something the board would like to do, we can definitely do that. Any thoughts? Go for it.
You want a motion to reaffirm our prior resolution?
Sure, go for it. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion?
This is resolution 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
Land use resolution 6. It already exists. We're just reaffirming as a board our commitment to it.
Okay.
Any questions, any thoughts? If not, we can vote on it quickly. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, who am I not looking at? Lori's not here.
Yep. I'm
Okay, so
opposed.
you're a
Yeah,
no?
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay, Mike is a no. And we don't have Lori, so Tony, can I put Lori as an abstention? Since,
Negative, she's not present,
okay,
so there needs to be notation in the minutes that she's missed, that she left, and then when she comes back.
Well, her box is here.
correct. And I know this is something she probably will want to be a part of. Can I hold off on this vote till she comes back? We'll go to other matters and come back to this. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry, I just got back.
I know.
Sorry.
I
I
know.
heard you were
timed it.
holding something up because of me. What's up?
We're just reaffirming our commitment to the golf courses and need your vote. Yes
Oh.
or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. That's fantastic. So everyone's a yes and Mike is a no. That is confirmed. Directors would be helpful if we joined in a video to, help put that message out. Thank you so much. Alrighty, moving on. I know, Glenn, if you want to go on straight to board member project updates and give us your update, and I know you have a motion for us.
All right, so we're Jordan's here as well. So we have a couple updates as the liaison to the IT committee. We've done some work in the last few months around setting up some business process review within RA. We're working to execute on that. We're probably going to focus on assessments. We're still working to get the right staffing on that piece. The other item to report out on is the website and the kind of re-engagement of the website. We have over the last several months kind of looked back at the recent history, the fact that we had some issues in 2020, and then there was an effort in late 2020 and 2021 to get a new website. And we did an options analysis earlier in the summer and determined that we would take a look at the selected or the most favored selection for 2021 website, which is a company called Civic Plus. Many of you may have been on that meeting last week where the IT committee invited the board members to view up to a 2-hour presentation by the vendor on what their software could do for RA. So one of the outputs of that, and I was not on the live call, but I would watch it afterwards, and I did help with the preparation, is that we would like the IT committee and the board to have a joint meeting in the near future to discuss in detail the feedback and think about the recommendation around that product called Civic Plus. At the same time, we don't want to hold things up, so we'd like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion this evening to direct staff to review and update the RFP from 2021 in case we do not select, in case the consensus is not to select the product that was displayed last week. So that would be the motion. I don't know if that's a correct motion or not, but that would be what we'd
I'll
like to do.
second. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
That's what I was going to do. Second.
Sure. Any discussion, any thoughts? Okay, all in favor? Aye. I think that's unanimous. Am I missing anyone? Nope, that's unanimous. Thank you, Glenn. One quick question on the topic of making motions. You had a $35,000 ask from the IT committee for the budget, and I know we discussed it a little earlier. Do you want that from this year's budget?
Well, just to be clear, the IT committee's proposal to do business process review is to try to do it first as a pilot with volunteers from the IT committee. And then if the pilot is successful and it proves valuable, that $35,000 would be used to maybe hire outside consulting help. It's totally optional, and it would be dependent on a successful pilot by the volunteer group from the IT committee.
Bob, any thoughts as treasurer? How would you want us to move on this? Are we okay to leave it as is? And then
Yes.
put it in? Okay,
I think it's a great approach.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Madam
Any-
President, Madam
Yes, John.
President,
Yes, John.
I move to extend the meeting to 10 o'clock.
No.
I made the motion.
You can move, somebody can second, but I'm
I'll
logging off
second.
and Jennifer can continue the rest of the meeting because I have to leave at 9:30 and Jennifer as vice chair can take on the rest. So, okay, everybody voting, any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Any no's? I'm a no. 1, 2, 3. Any abstentions? Okay, Margaret is an abstention. Okay.
Bees is calling you.
Sorry? Okay. Lori, I understand we want to move the environmental piece for the October meeting and you're okay with that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Max, sorry, I didn't see that. You have your hand up. Where are you? Where did you go on?
Yeah, no, thank you. I just, on the IT piece, two things. We'll be working on getting the meeting scheduled that Glenn was mentioning in order to keep that going quickly. So it is important to us that we want to make sure we get that in front of you quickly. But the other piece on the $35,000 piece, I'll look forward to getting together with Glenn or whoever the right people from the IT committee are, because I've also been doing some thinking about business service line analysis and what that looks like. So as I still don't know a whole lot about that, but I would like to know, Glenn, how you were thinking about using volunteers and where that might line up with some things I was thinking about for overall organizational business line analysis. So I'll follow up with him on that and we'll figure out how to report back to the whole board.
Thank you so much. Tony, if you're going to talk about the extension, I'm going to hold on you and go to Margaret first. If it's anything processed, go for it. I guess not. Thank you. Margaret, I know you have an update from PRAC and you have some motions for us to consider, so go for it. You're on mute. Sorry.
With PRAC, we are moving forward with a initial meeting that will include the board and PRAC members and any staff that are necessary to get an idea of what this survey would look like, what kind of questions and format we should be looking towards. That's already currently funded, so that will be coming at the October PRAC meeting per discussion with the PRAC committee. And then I do have a motion to move forward tonight. I move to direct staff to obtain a vendor to conduct a recreational survey, the price of which is not to exceed $77,000.
Second.
Any discussion, folks? No. All in favor? Aye. Mike? Perfect. Is that unanimous? I think that's unanimous. So fantastic. Margaret, is that it? Anything else?
That's all for this evening. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we will see directors at the October PRAC meeting when we have the vendor giving us a presentation.
And just so you know, that vendor has not been contracted for the full at this point, but they are being contracted for that specific meeting.
Just for the initial meeting. Erwin, on that topic, are you okay with us moving your resolution update to October as well?
No problem.
Thank you so much, Erwin. Yes, Larry?
Just a clarification. So for the survey vendor,
What is your bet on tonight's meeting? Let me ask that question before you ask me a question. What is your bet?
I'm not going to win. Okay, let me just say that.
Just kidding.
I'm not going to win.
Go for it.
But the question on the survey vendor, if that's the motion, Margaret, wasn't clear of initiating that fully this year. That's my understanding.
Oh,
correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So the work session that is proposed for the October 28th meeting is actually part of the full suite of that engagement. And so, I mean, my intent would be we work with Tony to get an agreement and just get moving on it. And that would just be the first piece of the overall engagement. So it would be part of that.
If that's part of staff's proposal based on the motion that was just made, that's fine.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry.
I sorry, I speak for myself on that. The rest of the board can speak too.
I think we're all on the same page on that. Any objections? I don't think so. All righty. Thank you, Erwin. Thank you so much. Yes, Jennifer.
One, I think if we're going to postpone Erwin's topic, don't we have to vote on it? And did I miss Lori's slash
She asked
Doug's?
that it be moved to October, and I did
Okay.
address that hers be moved to October.
Okay,
It was
so
her
can we,
request. Yes.
I think we have to vote to defer them because they're on the agenda. Am I wrong on that?
We haven't in the past, but we're happy to vote on both Lori and Erwin's, moving it to October.
So
I'll
moved.
move. Okay, is
So
there a
moved.
second?
Second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any no's? John, were you a yes or a no?
Yes, I was a yes. I made the motion. I seconded the motion. Yeah.
Jennifer, are you a yes or a no?
I'm a no.
Okay. All righty, that motion passes. Okay, new business if we can get to in 1 minute. If not, okay, go for it, John.
Madam President, within the last 2 weeks, many of the clusters in RA.
Actually, can I stop you for a minute? Really sorry. It's 9:30, so Jennifer, if you're okay to take over as chair for the rest of the meeting, I'm going to log
Sure.
off. Thank you so much, guys. I have a hard stop at 9:30. Thank you so much, folks. Bye. See you next
Thanks,
month.
Sarah.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
John.
I sent out an email to all the board members on this topic. Within the last 2 weeks, many of our clusters have been advised that their service is going to be cut in half, which presents a public health challenge for all of our cluster residents. They've also been faced in the middle of a budget year with a 33%, at least in the cases I know about, increase in fees. So it's a real hardship on our members and on our clusters, because for most of our members, their trash service is provided through their clusters. I'd like to understand the extent of this problem as it's faced by our clusters. I'd like the board to direct the staff to contact our clusters and see how many of them have been advised of the reduction in service, and to investigate what steps RA could take to ameliorate the impact of those changes on the clusters and the individual homeowners. And that's my motion.
Anyone have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? Bob?
Everyone, given the number of people who respond on Nextdoor every day about garbage service, everybody has that problem. I am not an advocate for the refuge services, but they're having a hell of a time holding on to people, which is the primary reason that they've cut service. I really object to them either keeping or raising the prices for half the service, which is what is happening virtually everywhere. The problem I have is I don't know how we can improve things, because in our neighborhood, with a couple of exceptions, everybody has changed trash services, and within 6 months, they went to once a week pickup and increased the price as well. So everybody's jumped on this. This is like the oil companies. Everybody's chosen to stay at the same level of service, and the cost of service is increasing. So I'm four square for getting the information. I just don't know what we could do to help people.
I believe Mac has his hand. Sorry, were you not done, Bob?
No, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. Mac and then Tony.
Yeah, thanks. I think the issue I'd like to raise for board consideration, thanks for raising this, John. This is definitely an issue that's affecting our membership, and it is starting to be discussed. I think the issue that I want to raise for the board, though, is I'm not yet sure of the scope of work or the impact to staffing resources, A, to put together the information that might be asked for, or B, what it would take to try to implement something or quote unquote work on it. there could very well be an impact from an opportunity cost standpoint in certain staffing areas. I'm just not sure. We didn't come prepared tonight to advise you all of that. So there's a couple ways we could go. Obviously, if it's that important, you could give us direction and I can figure out how to get that done. The other option would be to let us scope it out a little bit and try to give the board some information on what options even look like and how that would impact, the resourcing model, because there are some other big things coming down the pike too, particularly including land use outside of our normal, staffing model. So that's just an issue I want to raise for all your consideration.
Madam Chairman,
Tony,
President.
Tony, really, I think Tony was next.
I just want to remind the board about, I believe it's Board and Association Operation Resolution 1. I have a little bit of heartburn when we use new business as anything more than a trailer, a coming attractions of, hey, this is on my mind and I'm going to bring it to Bach, because it technically says if you're going to bring business before the board, you need to go through Bach or declare it an emergency and move to amend the agenda. So I think this is a well thought out idea. I'm just a little concerned that we're trampling over our resolution.
If I can speak to that.
Go ahead, John. So
to have an announcement by the principal vendor of the clusters is an emergency. We're going to be dealing with overflowing trash cans throughout the association over the next several months. I don't think this can wait for Bach. If I thought it could, I wouldn't have made the motion. And all I'm doing is asking the board to tell staff, go look at this. Let's figure out how extensive the problem is, and let's come back and see if there's some solutions. So I don't think it's overly burdensome, but it clearly is an emergency. It's an emergency in my cluster, and I gotta believe it's an emergency in every cluster of the association that deals with ADS, or American Disposal Services, is the specific problem causer. So respectfully, I think it is an emergency, which is why I raised it.
And I respectfully note that it is not just that trash company, it's multiple trash companies, and it affects everyone in the area, not just clusters. So.
Right. Exactly right.
Tony, is your hand up again?
It is. I just wanted to suggest as a possible alternative, given the dire nature of this, perhaps a special meeting might be considered by this board, not necessarily tonight, giving staff ample time to provide alternatives. But if this can't wait for Bach, then it obviously can't wait for a full month meeting. And so if the either the president or two directors feel strongly, you are empowered to go that route and give it the proper consideration.
So, Madam President, what we're doing is directing staff to start the investigation. I'm saying I don't want to wait till the October Bach meeting to give staff that direction, nor do I want to wait to the October full board meeting to give staff that direction. There's no deadline here. There's no expectation of action other than find out how big the problem is and see what we come up with suggestions.
Erwin?
I suspect, and I don't know this for a fact, and Cam can tell us, that a lot of the clusters have management people who deal with a lot of the issues that are dealt with by clusters on a regular basis, and that they are well aware of this problem and have been looking into it. And so it may be well to simply ask the clusters, what is your take on it and what are you doing?
Well, that is part of my motion, Erwin.
Yeah, but it would be the place to start, I think.
That's why it's part of the motion.
Cam, did you have any comments to Erwin, or are you good?
I think it's important to continue to use our channels of communication with cluster leaders to help facilitate whatever the board is looking for information seeking. I'm glad that there's no timeline on this because it's not an easy cookie cutter kind of situation, but I will say I am quite familiar with trash contracts, given my experience with managing communities, and every community across Fairfax County, the state, is experiencing this. And so I'm going to guess that we're very limited in what we can do for discrete entities with their own contracts. So happy to further look into it, but we're going to need some time.
Lori?
Yeah, I would also like to bring to everyone's attention that there was a statement made on September 1st of this year that Fairfax County, the whole county, is considering ways to potentially change the way trash is collected across the county following numerous complaints from residents about private companies being unresponsive and not picking up garbage. So I agree that we should collect information, but I think that I would like to also be very aware of the role that the county is taking and what might be going on at that level.
Right, and that would be part of this. I mean, what can RA do? Well,
Yeah,
RA
so
doesn't
that's
do
why I
anything.
second your motion. Yes.
Right.
Any other thoughts, suggestions, comments before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of John's motion, say aye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4. Saying 4. All those against or nay? 1. Is that your hand up, Mike? Because if it is, it's not viewable. Oh no, no hand. Okay, so 1 and abstaining. 2. Tony, is that what does that do?
4, 2, and 1. No,
Four,
4,
right,
1.
2 and
4,
1.
4,
Motion
2,
passes.
and
The
say that
motion
again.
passes.
If it's
That's
4
what I
to
thought,
1,
right?
motion passes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8.
Okay, who didn't vote?
4,
Yeah,
2, and
that's what
1.
I'm.
Yeah.
Sarah is absent.
So would that be 9? We have
Sarah is
8.
absent.
Jen,
Mike,
did you
you
vote?
Mike, you abstained, did you not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Glenn.
and Margaret said no, and so did everyone else say yes?
No, I said I
You
abstained.
said so 2 abstentions, 1 no, and everyone else said yes.
We have
So it
7
must be
directors.
5. It must be 5, 2, and 1.
No, it's 4, 2, and 1. Glenn is missing.
Glenn is missing. That's
Glenn is
hang on.
missing.
Glenn,
Where's Glenn?
Okay,
Glenn and Sarah are missing, so you only
so
have
that's
7.
7. So that's a 7. So that still passes because it's 4.
Correct.
Got good. That passes. Any other business? Oh, Matt.
Yeah, so just following up on that, after an affirmative action there, I understood the timing to be open-ended, on the end. Obviously, from a CEO perspective, from an expectation standpoint, that's a thing that's out there. I will do my best to take a look at our work plan and see where this can be squeezed in. I don't want to get a few months down the road and not have met an expectation, that pops up. Well, what are you doing on something if the motion was truly that open-ended? So I will just try to see where this can get fit in and try to report back to everybody. And hopefully, we eventually get the information in a timely manner that you're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Well, without further business, then I say we are adjourned, 9:42. Let's see who won today's bet. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
I know.